All right. Welcome one and all to the office hours, the live stream. Let me get the last little bit set up here. Charging my phone. All right. Let's get to the office, shall we? Welcome to the office hours. My name is Paul Berserker01. Yep. Batman Shelley, your humble host and space bartender here at the AstroPub, your space bar at Twitch. This is the office hours. Office hours is a stream where it's a live stream, so that's why it's pretty long. No, I will not summarize in this live stream. Some of these portions will be taken out, and we will be made into their own standalone videos, but generally speaking, no. This is just a live stream. So come join us Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific. Hey, Mr. Hyde's Monster. I don't know if that's on or not. Should be fine. Thank you for the $10 for super chat. Good evening, Paul. Hey, a tip.
Mr. Hyde, super chat at $10. Good evening, Paul. I'm ready for this great live stream. 3.18 hopefully will be live in late February. Can't wait for my E1.
Hey, awesome. Yeah, I don't think we're going to see E1 in 318, but thank you for the $10. Yeah, 318's likely, I would say March still. I thought maybe mid-February, but we're still not in, we're at the end of January and we're still not at wave 2. So my original guess of March, I think, is still about right. Though I don't understand people's like, oh, I expect 319 to be released in Q4 of this year, or 318 Q4 of this year, or Q1 of next year. It's like, it's not that bad, y'all. It's bad, not that bad. There's some very, very negative views out there in the community. There are a lot of people who are super pessimistic about the game. Not even realistic, just straight up like wallowing in misery about progress. Which is how I know CIG is right. There's a lot of new people in this game. Welcome to the slow march that is Star Citizen development. It gets better, but holy shit, does it take a long time. I choose to believe 319 will be out immediately after 318. Blazrat, I think you are insane. We're not getting 319 until July. Nah, not like the goons, Alphonse. I think there's plenty of people who are newer to Star Citizen who I think are more used to traditional development styles. So like they got in, they're like, oh, so this game is in early access, so we're just gonna see patch after patch after patch. And it's like, no, you're not. You're gonna see patches, but you're gonna see slow progress. Hey, what you, Gary? Doing good. Hey, Velocity. I'm expecting the replication layer to come at Evocati at the end of the year. I think that's a little pessimistic, Crystal. I still think we're going to see the replication layer thing in either 319 or 320. But then again, I don't think we're going to see 319 until July. So, not really. Early access, I would say most people who have early access experience understand that like the game gets to a playable state that they enjoy, and then it takes a while for it to come out. And I don't think Star Citizen is in a playable state that most people can enjoy. Hi, Strikon. Popped into the PTU to look around as you're starting the stream. How did you enjoy it? I know they're doing Jumptown right now, so a lot of people, I'm sure, are streaming the new Jumptown. I don't know, apart from the bugs, there's plenty to like. Yeah, it's pretty good. So we're going to be looking at the ISC today, which talked about at least one of the features that they're planning on for 319, which they're finally being open about. And then we will be looking over the Squadron 42 monthly report, which is a little bit more, like I would say the Star Citizen monthly report that we did last time was pretty beefy. There's lots of good stuff in there. There was a lot of, we're working on 318. But the Squadron 42 stuff is much more beefy in terms of what they kind of talk about, so. Patience is the key. That's what I learned since I started following Star Citizen closely a year ago. Star Citizen is a lesson in patience, but I think if you are interested in how games are developed or games as an art form, Star Citizen is a crash course in learning how games are developed. I've always had a kind of an interest in game development in general. That started back with Halo 2 when it was coming out. I was paying attention to what I could from that. And as over time, as I've learned more and more about game development, the more and more I've learned that game development sucks. Game development is one of those things where the absolute dopamine hit of making a game that's fun and people enjoy and people play the shit out of, and it's like changes their lives, is such a high rush that you constantly chase it, even though it's killing you. Game development kills its developers. And it doesn't have to, which is the fucked up part, but... Did I get a chance to watch Bruce Green play Star Citizen with Lawrence Good? With Lawrence, good news, they didn't hate it. I don't know who either of those two people are, but I'm glad that's good. I know, what's his name? MCDM or whatever. He played Star Citizen and enjoyed it. Oh, Funhouse, nice. Good to hear the Funhouse played it. I don't know, man, if the devs keep finishing 3.19 shit, they might be able to heave-ho that patch. I think they're planning to heave-ho it, like they're on the pace to heave-ho it. The issue isn't the devs, the issue is Q&A. All of the work that it takes internally to take stuff that they've built and then test it and then merge it together, because, you know, building a derelict on its own, in its own test map, is completely different from implementing it in-game. And so... It'll be hard to see. I think we'll end up with more stuff in 3.19 than they originally planned, because I don't think 3.19 is coming out until July. But again, I could be wrong. Hope you're having a wonderful evening. I am, Mitch. I'm exhausted. I've been trying to like jump back in from the holiday season to do more exercises and that kind of stuff, but now my entire body hurts. Because I'm doing like 3-5 miles exercises in 50 between 30 and 50 degree weather. I know a lot of people, and I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear, oh well, it's negative 750 degrees where I am. I don't care. It's cold as shit, and it's difficult to do workout in when you don't have proper equipment. I'm okay with 3.18 in late April, early May, and Invictus being a 3.1 patch. I think that's what we're going to see. You don't think that since 3.18 has been pushed back a few months that they haven't made more progress on 3.19? I'm sure they have. But the issue isn't, like, again, so let me put it to you this way. How game development works in just the broadest of terms, this is oversimplification times 1,000, is each group of people is involved in their own team. With Star Citizen, they have like ship teams, they have the gameplay team, they have the engine team, all these different teams, and they work individually to work on their own goals, their own mandates of completing something. So, and that's what they do sprints for the overall goal. They try to reach a certain point. Then when those things are done, they have to be integrated into the wider game. And that's where people like gameplay testers and QA come in to ensure that when you integrate all that stuff into the broader game, that it doesn't break. And in some cases, you do that incrementally. You build it, you put it into the game, you merge it, you see if it happens, that kind of stuff. I'm not too sure exactly how CIG does it. It may be a hodgepodge of a lot of different things, but you need QA along those lines to test and integrate everything to make sure it doesn't, implementing Rex doesn't somehow break food. That shit just kind of happens. And as a result, if those teams are dedicated to 3.18 right now to test and maintain, so they're pushing out these patches to try to check these patches, those people won't be available to test the 3.19 in a similar way. So until 3.18 is out the door, those people won't be available to go on 3.19. So. Didn't they say they upload with new builds on daily internal use? Wouldn't they 3.19 patches being built on these new patches? they'd be built on a different branch. They'd be built on the main branch, the dev branch. Until we hear that they've forked 3.19 into its own branch, then it's just all kind of work stuff right now. Do subs need to resub to keep their PTU access? Yes. And send pizza to remind them. Oh, you put pizza in the game? No, like I said, that's a gross oversimplification. Each team is going to be doing its different things. The pace upon which things are integrated into the game are different. But they do need work on things like branching the code to a new branch so they can release that, or testing purposes. And if they don't have the manpower to test what they're doing, then they may not have enough time to implement it in there. Hot take, I don't even care about 3.19 right now. I'm still drooling over Salvage. Salvage is pretty fun. So all of that is to say, I would not put all of my eggs in the basket, my valuable, precious eggs in a single basket for 3.19 coming out anytime soon. Because you also have to factor in other factors that have nothing to do with development, like vacation, travel, family, illness. Those sorts of things happen. And then at any point along the line, like I said, something could explode. Something could be implemented that breaks everything, and then they have to sit back and go back and work through some of those issues. I do lay eggs. I'm my precious eggs. Love the Gladiator vid. Great work. Thank you. Oh, Garth asks, do you think the Gladiator was going to get a tractor beam like advertised once they're in game? I think the tractor beam, the ability to swap out the guns for tractor beams may happen, but it's hard to tell. 3.18 in April confirmed. I would say more like June. I think we're more likely to get a March release of 3.18, and then the Invictus patch is going to be 3.18.1, and then we'll get a 3.19 in June, July. This is a random question, but do you think the interest of expanding medical gameplay okay, well, I'll do this. Do you think that in the interest of expanding medical gameplay and skill, med pens and guns should not instantly revive a player if they're in an unconscious state? I think there should be a process where other medical pens are involved as well, depending on the severity of the injury. I think that's overly complicated for the gameplay. I think that's a bad play. I think the better play is to more frequently give people tier 3 injuries when they're down. Like if you're downed, you should have a tier 3 injury minimum if you're downed, if not higher. And that means that you're still crippled, which still requires other medicines for you to function. I think it's much better to do the actual treatment stage, the first aid stage, to be a little bit more complicated in terms of having benefits and drawbacks, like having medicine that can give you use of your legs if you have a tier 3 injury in your legs, to completely use of your legs for longer, but you still have a speed penalty, or you can have complete normal, but then you have a higher drug toxicity level, or whatever, the blood toxicity level, whatever it's called. To have more variance in those sorts of medicines. I think making that a little bit more complicated, where it's simple as you just need this, hit them with this stuff and you're fine, to get them going. But good medics will go, this person needs to get back to a facility because they've got a tier 2 injury. I think one of the problems right now is that CIG tells you if you have a tier 3 or tier 2 or tier 1 injury. They shouldn't do that. They should require diagnostics to be done by a medical professional in game, like a tool or something like that. You should just see yourself getting hurt. In fact, I'd argue you should just remove the health meter. That's probably a little bit more controversial, but I think if you didn't have a health meter, it would mean that people aren't as like aware of their own health, but they have to be more aware of what their character is doing. Clearly, we need a resurrection beam. I'm skeptical to tier 3 injuries, especially for long-term survival gameplay. Why? Learn what drugs let you power through what the game states where there's your complications. I think there has to be options for treating people away from hospitals. There should be, but I don't think. I think at least initially for a 1.0 release of Star Citizen, what you need is more in-depth gameplay when it comes to medbeds, but some more variants for first aid as well. Like the Apollo and the Endeavor. I mean, to a degree. The whole C is on the pledge store. You can buy it Concept War Bond. However, it only comes with 6 months insurance. It's interesting it didn't come with LTR 10 year like most Concept War Bond. I think the whole C did come with LTI originally, but the whole C is old. It's ancient now. But if you buy the War Bond for it, it ends up being, it doesn't give you any of that kind of extended. If you bought it during Invictus, though, I think it did. Or not Invictus, IAE, it did. Medgun diagnosing tier makes it sense to me. It's how Ace Mod in Arma works. You don't know if you're how injured you are. You have to do a diagnostics on yourself to figure out how injured you are. I wouldn't mind like removing the health bar and doing more of a paper doll model where like it will flash where you're injured, so you know I got hit in the leg, you know. But not like I have a tier 3 injury in my leg sort of thing. I think that's a much better. Remove that from the player's view and make it so that you have to have a NPC or another player do that for you. That forces players to be more reliant on other people for medical attention, which makes it more difficult for players to diagnose their own symptoms unless they understand the gameplay functionality, like limping or breathing heavy or those things. Yeah, and you could do, but I wouldn't even do a blood pressure and awareness level. I'd have that be in diagnostic screens hidden behind your Mobi glass or something. Something that's not obviously in front of you. Maybe like the traditional blood kind of screen effect to let you know that. Because you still need some aspects of the game telling you you are injured and hurt, because normally you can feel that, but in a video game you're not going to feel that. And we don't have things like haptic feedback or anything else like that with like controllers as traditional. So you need to have some other visual stimulus that you are in fact injured. So. Remove the drug limits from landing zones, make medical relevant again? No. I personally think what you need to do is change the drug levels, or change the mediguns to having to require consent. I don't know how complicated it would be, but I think that's a much better concept of saying if you have a medical gun and you try to use it inside of an area, it will say that a little pop-up will show up on the person who's trying to get medicaled and says blah 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 wants to administer medicine. Would you like to do this? Yes or no? And you click no if they're just trolling you. Or if you don't click anything, then it automatically denies it. Like they can't do anything until you click yes, which makes sense in registered zones, areas that have, green zones. So that means that people who are injured inside green zones can still get help if they have friends, but you can't just go around drugging people up for no reason. But how about long-term healing gameplay? So you could heal in a med bed, or let the leg get better over a period of weeks. but I think that's more of a post, like I said, a post-release concept, like convalescence. You need to have some sort of field bandage, and that's where you're getting into like really complex gameplay, which is so niche, it's not needed for first. Because like I know a lot of people are really excited about getting lost and turning Star Citizen into a survival sim, but like it's not. Like the universe itself is going to be really hard to survive in as it is. They don't need to make it extra harder. So at least initially, you don't really need that. Well, they ever talk about different injury effects, like ballistics causing more bleeding, energy causing burns? I think they have a little bit, but not really. I just joined your YouTube. I really enjoy listening to the lore of Star Citizen. Thank you for listening, boy. That's awesome. All right. So for those of you who don't know, I also do like miniature modeling. I actually have like hobbying. I actually have a model of a freelancer, which I've been painting up and I still got to finish. I'll do it at some point. Probably during my spring break. But I usually do updates when I finish them here on the office hours. So I will show off. I've been working my way through 40K Kasserkin. Sergeant. Have a plasma gunner. Have a hotshot volley gun with a Auspex scanner. So these guys are really, really detailed, and it takes me a while to get through them. Where's the SCL Q&A forum for tomorrow's questions? I saw it earlier. I actually posted a question on it. I don't remember exactly. What are your thoughts on the state of exploration grade ploop in development? I don't really know much of what's in development for exploration, other than everything is part of the exploration route. You got a 2K Ultramarine army, haven't played in forever, need to get back to it. 9th edition is complicated and weird. 10th edition is coming out in like June, so I'd wait for it to the new edition to drop. I bought too many guards on pre-orders. I did too. So. No, I am by no means a pro painter. These pale in comparison to like Golden Demon winners. These are nice, I would say. I think I'm a good painter. I would say I'm an average painter compared to a lot of people. However, I will also say that I think, as I've discovered, the majority of mini and miniature war game, especially players, don't care to paint their minis very well, or if at all. So, but I'm one of those. I have a sense of pride. I wanna. If I'm gonna lose badly on the table, I'm gonna put my damn make sure my minis look good while they die in the front lines. Propane tier. They killed my Harlequins. They could break till the 10th. Yeah. That's the hobby I've been considering. I'd like to get a 3D resin printer. That's not a bad idea. You can get a lot of cool stuff with a 3D resin printer. Especially if you like tabletop RPGs. Oh man, that's one of the reasons why I want to get a resin printer, is because I want to get back into like Pathfinder and other stuff like that. Get a local group coming. I also want to try to get into Mordheim. I've discovered Mordheim, and I'm like, this is cool as shit. I'd love to play this game. But, yeah. The modeling and painting is almost more fun for me than the game itself. Painting is very relaxing to me. I like that. So, I'd love to see, I know a lot of CIG members are big modeling crews. There is JRDF models, which exist, which are, you know, officially licensed models for Star Citizen stuff. I'd love to see more, like miniature gaming for Star Citizen stuff as well. There's a lot of options for that. You jump into PF2 edition, second edition coming from 5e. I left 5e a long time ago. I don't think I've played 5e in 3 years. For those of you who don't know, I actually used to do, and it's more of trying to find, you know, the biggest problem is scheduling. I used to do a regular TTRPG stream that I called The Spice Must Roll, where we would do pretty much a bunch of different science fiction settings. We did Star Trek, the official Star Trek, TTRPG, Star Trek Adventures. We've done Star Wars Edge of the Empire. We did The Expanse, the official Expanse TTRPG. We did Wrath and Glory, the Warhammer 40k TTRPG. So we did a bunch of different ones. So I've been doing non-standard TTRPG stuff, not non-D&D TTRPG stuff for a long time. There's a lot of much better systems out there than D&D. You need to get one of those photo studios with a turntable. I've got a white box, like a photo box. It's just a really cheap one. And when you get really into the details, you can see all my fuck ups. Like, it looks good from afar, but when you get up close, it looks terrible. I am sloppy when it comes to that sort of stuff. They just get good enough. Boarding action rules for 9th edition are pretty awesome, though. They are. The boarding action rules are really cool if you can. And I think a lot of people are like, it's not going to survive beyond, you know, whatever, because they've done this a bunch of times. And it's like, I think boarding action is one of those things where it might actually survive beyond 9th as its own little miniature gaming experience where people will play it even longer, because the idea of playing 40k on a spaceship is cool, and the rules are super simple. So that's part of the reason why Mordheim looked cool to me, is because it seemed like a lot of games like Kill Team and Necromunda and Blood Bowl and now Boarding Action, a lot of them seem to heavily borrow from Mordheim, because I see a lot of that ancestry in these newer games from the old Mordheim game. All right, so we're gonna do the ISC now, because we've been live for about 30 minutes. Make sure all the notifications have come out. Done all the pre-stuff. Yeah, and also, for those of you who don't know, I released the latest lore video on the Gladiator. This is the one that took a little bit longer to make. It's about 20 minutes long. And it's being very well received. So I want to thank you all for watching it. All right. All right. Turn this off. Go to the presentation. So if you haven't seen this before, I'd heavily watch it. I'd suggest watching it afterwards, but
it's a new year. And like every new year before it, here at CIG, January is a time of planning, of summits, of getting together and looking back at how the plans and activities of last year went, to revise and inform the direction and processes of the one ahead. And to do so, all while still working diligently on Alpha 3.18, Star Citizen's biggest patch since 2017. One that will serve as future foundation for the persistent universe's development going forward. And to say it's a busy time in the studios at this moment would be an understatement. But it's also an opportunity for ISC to stretch its legs a bit like we always do. Maybe try a few new things here and there to take advantage of the first real big series of internal gatherings we've been able to have since the pandemic began, and continue to look at as many aspects of video game development as we can, while always doing our best to not get in the way of that very same development. And I'm sure the editors will tell me that was my longest single run-on sentence in ISC history.
probably not.
So this quarter, we can look forward to seeing a few teams that we haven't seen in a while, meet some that are newly formed for the needs of this new year, continue to look farther forward than usual with our Journey to 4.0 specials, and of course, continue to look at work currently in progress for the next quarterly release, which is where we're going to start this week. Now, while Alpha 3.18 is still working its way through PTU, let's jump ahead to a little of what's on its way for Alpha 3.19 after that.
Okay, I'm going to clarify this. There is definitely going to be some confusion. What he's saying is that at least right now, they can confirm the first thing he's going to talk about is in 3.19. There is no confirmation of the second thing he talks about as part of 3.19. There's going to be a lot of assumptions, and I think CIG is planning on having it in 3.19, but they do not want to try to commit to it yet because they don't know. Another thing important to remember is that these sections that he's about to talk about were recorded in December before they went on break. We know this because he interviewed a lot of the Montreal team on ISC, and they talked about how the section on Blorville, which we're going to see here in a moment, was recorded before they left. When they're like, oh, we just recorded it, and that was before the break happened. Some of this stuff is pre-recorded.
During a recent Environment Team Summit here in the UK, we asked visiting members from our Montreal studio to discuss the next evolution of crashed derelicts making their way into the persistent universe, including new variations to existing favorites in multiple stages of decay and the addition of modular habitation units that will soon allow for the continued creation of new mission locations from the tiniest of barracks to the most impressive of shantytowns.
Derelicts are important because it's adding content, enriching the experience for the player. It's like telling a story as well as the actual piece of a derelict that's there.
The derelicts who are in the game right now are super nice. I'm super happy about them. We have really nice shapes. We can really feel the scale. When we walk, we can see how big they are.
They're impressive from a distance. The rustic feel, the abandonedness, these big, enormous, impressive shapes and silhouettes that you get to explore.
Having all the vegetation growing up on them bring really a second life, and it's super interesting to see that bring kind of adventure side of all those things, a mysterious side.
Indiana Jones kind of style, this exploring, discovering. There's a variety for players like to experience, to go back, revisit, and yeah, enjoy the derelict.
I think we can improve the speed to create those because they are really big location. We need to have a lot of artists working on those because it's really a huge amount of work to work on those one, and we want to create 100 of them everywhere on different planets and moons.
Adding more of the because we have like OCs, so like dressing them up immediately instead of hand placing all the rocks, the foliage, and all the like visual elements separately by hand. We should make actually like nicer modules that are already like pre-assembled and like most of the stuff is already contained in it. So that way we can like deploy it, spend a bit more time on detailing, just an extra pass, an extra level of depth to the art.
What I like the most on the new ship we did, we create a deeper story about those crash sites. With the Star Runner crashing on the planet and having the 600i just crashing on the mountain just by, we can just think about maybe they got a fight on the sky and they get hit and the boat get crashed just by themselves.
We really set out to add different variations of age to our ships. So we have like the freshly crashed ships, the older ones that the planet overgrown over, and we have the very like derelicts as like just a skeleton of the ship that's remaining. Really just the frame of the actual ship that's just abandoned and rusted out.
The first ages of the derelict crash site is the fire one. That's mean it's when the ship just crashed, it's still on fire, we still have power in it, we still have sparks. The second age is crash. So that's mean the ship is crashed there, but maybe just a week after that. So no fire, no smoke anymore, no power inside the ship, no sparks. The third age is the biome is overgrown. It's when the biome just take its place back. We're going to have more sand on it, we're more dirt, we have grass, going to have leaves and vine growing up on it.
The fourth version is the paint's been worn off. It's been in the sun for an extended period of time. It's scratched up. It's a lot of rust. It's been overgrown. It's been scavenged. People have visited the ship, and it's missing pieces, panels. So a lot of wires are hanging. It's been used. It's been harvested basically. And I'm really excited about the derelict habs that we'll be adding to them.
Nice. I saw this already, but yes, it's very nice.
We're looking at a library of habs to create these little settlements.
Hey, my type of settlement.
Those library because we want to reuse all those habs on different ship and create the different stories and depth about why that ship is there and who is going to live around.
We have like interiors. We have some that is just for like sheltering from the sun, from the harsh conditions of the planet. We have some that's just for sleeping. Oh, there's some that have like little bars, little setups inside. People can eat, can meet up. Some other ones are just for like electricity generation. We have solar panels on some of them.
When people find those ships, they kind of salvage them, so they took part and kind of create some kind of habitation because they want to live around those crash sites to be able to protect themselves for the weather.
These little mini camps, basically, that people can go and explore. These can be added to the new derelicts, but also to the old ones as well. We made them pretty flexible in terms of look, because we can change up the wear and tear on these things, so we can add different ages.
Everybody and his dog calls himself an outlaw.
Yes, Dragatolon. That's the one thing that I think we probably need to talk about here in a moment. I'm going to wait till this gets through. But how the hell can you have a bar on Daymar? There's no airlock for that thing. How could you be helmetless in a bar when there's no air? I think that's the one thing that CIG is going to run into is like, these are all really cool ideas, but you couldn't put them on Daymar or any place that doesn't have oxygen because no one could survive there in the way that have. So
to make them look extra rough.
But yeah, how can you have a campfire? You know, unless you're burning. I mean, you could technically have you could have fire if there was an oxidizer as part of the fuel. You know, the fuel would have to have an oxidizer as part of it instead of just being fuel. Rocket fuel, for instance. But that would be incredibly rare. You wouldn't have a campfire. So
rusty, or we can look like pretty much brand new, like they just scavenged the ship and made these little huts out of the panels and stuff. The purpose is to have a multi-use, multi-ages, different environments that they can suit into.
Oh, I hope that it's just a test that they're going to theme it appropriately. I hope so too, because that's the one thing that I think they would get absolutely dunked on. I mean, I dunk on them constantly. Like, none of this makes any sense, CIG. It looks cool, but this doesn't make sense narratively in the game. Because you're saying this is a hellish place where I can't take my helmet off and I die, but why is this NPC bartender can do that? Like, doesn't make any sense. Why is there a campfire in a place where there is no oxygen for fires to burn? There needs to be a reason for these things. There needs to have some logical consequences, not just whatever the fuck you feel like and throwing it in there. And I get it's early alpha. They're planning around some things. And a lot of that stuff makes more sense for places like Hurston, where you have that kind of outback, or in Pyro, where you have oxygenized, like planets that have atmospheres and have oxygen, and probably has a lot of crashes. That makes sense. But for 319 and no.
Either snow, sand environments, different weather into the jungle. Like, it's a multi-purpose habs library that, yeah, it's just increase our speed and everything.
Yeah, and I think what they're saying here is that they're building this as a library for the future, so they don't actually have to hand paint everything into the universe. They can just pull something out of their records and just drop it into an area that makes sense.
The idea was to finish our library in the last years. So now with the next mandate, with the next delivery crash, we'll be able to create all those shantytown everywhere on different planets. So that will bring more gameplay and more opportunity to the player to just go around and visit them.
And if there's one constant in game development, that's change. Or in this case, the continuing iteration by a dedicated team to populate the planets and moons of Stanton and Pyro with not only the derelicts and shantytowns that we saw, but our landing zones like Lorville.
So unless CIG wants to change some of the lore for the moons, which is fine, it makes sense that they have some of the moons have maybe have terraformation a little bit, especially in Crusader where they don't have a lot of anything else. You're gonna need to like pull back. You're gonna need to dial back on some of these things, because that's the shitty part, is that you're gonna have to start actually dealing with pressurized, because they're gonna have resource system implemented in everything in the next year or so. This is, as long as once they finish that, they're gonna start doing it with HABs. They're gonna do it with ships. So pressurization and oxygen is a big thing, and they've even said that they're really want to make space dangerous. So you're going to have to find that balance between making space super dangerous and just saying fuck it with logic. And I get, again, a lot of this stuff is just they throwing stuff in there, but there is currently places like on like moons where they have campfires. Like, it makes sense in Microtech to have a campfire at a derelict outpost. Magda makes no fucking sense to have a campfire on Magda. There's no fucking way that's happening. I'd rather have some simulation sacrifice for a fun experience, exploration, for sure. But, like, there's no reason you couldn't do both.
Now, we first spoke of the upcoming changes to Lorville in a Journey to 4.0 segment at CitizenCon 2952. But while we had the folks in town, we thought it'd be worth checking in on the team's progress while they were here. Progress that's, quite frankly, going so well, we're starting to think this new version of our oldest landing zone might just arrive a little sooner than expected.
That does not mean that he's confirmed that 319 for Lorville is coming out, and he will say that himself at some point, because a lot of people are going to make this mistake, because the way this is edited is deceptive, CIG. This is very deceptive. I get it. You've made some, we don't know, it might actually, which is a little coy, and I get it. It's dramatic. It's the whole concept, but you're going to also have to be very firm, because this is going to confuse the shit out of people. People are going to be like, oh, so this is coming in 319, right? This is all about the new things for 319, which I'm sure they're shooting for, but that needs to be illustrated more concretely than this, because this can easily get mistakes. So,
since the last time we talked about Lorville 2.0, a lot of things have changed. It has evolved. The key element that changed is the detail level of all the elements, and I specifically like to mention the buildings. So there's details.
CR is big on immersiveness more than the simulationists. It's immersion breaking to have a planet that will kill me in seconds if I take my helmet off, and also have a bartender that doesn't have a spacesuit and a bonfire outside that same place. Like, that makes no sense. To have a bar without pressurization on a planet, like, no. That is immersion breaking.
That really enhances the building believability. All the industrial outskirts really give the impression of a scale of the city. It will be iconic. Our materials are much more closer to a final look. We were going to a path of adding more tints and variety in color to the buildings and the surrounding structures, as well, adding a lot of emissives throughout the city, and that gives like a good impression of the day and the night.
Keep an eye out for defenses. We plan for the revolution.
Cycle.
It's beautiful, though.
The branding is very Hurston family centric. Like, they're very brutalist in a way.
I've noticed that a lot of like, after people complained about how tall the towers were, the towers suddenly got smaller than the main tower.
and yeah, it will be iconic. The process of going from first pass into final, sometimes we have to break a bit of stuff because as we're finding out the correct scale of the buildings, validate how it looks and how
Are
it
they
looks,
AA
we
cannons? I don't think
realize
so.
that
I think it's just
things need
supposed to be
aligned differently.
spikes
You
to
have to
represent the
go
brutal
into
spikes.
and remove some buildings or rearrange some neighborhoods to make it them fit together in a more cohesive way. There's things beyond like the new buildings. There's new pathways. There's the trenches. There's some
Trench
tunnels
runs
as well, going into like
Looks
those
great.
pyramid shapes that comes from Eric's concept, and we've added tunnels to those. There's cranes, and they create an opportunity to fly under them, flowing from the outside of the city to the inside, and pipelines. And there's a way of finding your way into Loreville with all these things that we've added.
Those are
and it
landing
has,
zones.
like, a
Those are landing
really
pads.
fun structure, easy ways to find where you're at. We're adding more landing pads, especially on the building rooftops. They create opportunities for gameplay, for pickup missions, and for
Possibly
the
smuggler
future
entrances, yeah.
of building interiors as well, or just simple mission types of stuff to do on the rooftops.
There was some discussion about this, about like, oh, we can land in places. It's like, no, I don't think you're going to be able to access the buildings from the ground floor. I think you'll always have to go through a landing pad of some kind. And I think initially it's going to be mostly on the rooftops. But this is pretty cool. It looks great.
The city is quite expanded, so
It reminds me a lot of
it's extending
ArcCorp,
much
honestly.
further in terms of like
Of
the
Area 18.
industrial areas that we're adding to the outreach
But
of the city.
much
the
more
outskirts.
grim,
They feel like they have
Area
a
18.
purpose. They have like quarries. They have like
Hey, Drake.
the pipelines. They have like industry or manufacturing. They lead up to the city. It feels functional. There's like smokestacks.
It looks like a
activity
city.
going on with cranes, and it makes like a fun
Yeah.
layout.
This doesn't really look like Night City. This looks like the Pit. This looks like a Pittsburgh, or those other kind of more industrial cities where you just see nothing but industry everywhere.
We've experimented with moving L19 or the CBD or the spaceport in relationship to
Like
each
Trenton,
other.
yeah.
In the end, we barely moved them. We only moved like the spaceport
Like Trenton, but yeah.
slightly.
Oh,
like,
definitely
a few hundred meters. That's not a lot in the whole scale.
The central building, which is the big kind of like pyramidal kind of thing, is definitely inspired by Blade Runner.
The city, what you'll see from the vistas from those places is going to be really a big positive change, I think. And it's still something we're tweaking and working on because we really want to make those work like key shots,
looks so
basically,
beautiful.
for those vistas.
That looks fucking amazing.
Travel to the city is not changing other than the fact that the transit to the gates will be a bit extended, but the view from the transit will be a lot different in a good way, less repeated. You feel more like you're in a real city, and we'll take like a special care along like the path of the train.
God, that scale. Holy shit. I think
key
they
to
increased the
changing
size of
Loreville
Central.
is the opportunity to have like a whole city, the opportunity to have like
That is, by the way, this right here, the big building, that's called Central, which is the name of the headquarters for ArcCorp, for Hurston. And I think they increased the size of it. I think it's bigger than it usually than it is now. Like it is bigger in this version than it is now. So I think they decreased the size of some of the buildings, or maybe they didn't. They just increased the footprint of Central, which again makes sense.
the key to changing Loreville is the opportunity to have like a whole city built to scale so that we can fly in and there's no zones that are blocked to the player. Different viewpoints throughout the city where we can land, and it's preparing also the ground for the future updates like the building interiors, because the original buildings in Loreville were much too small to have buildings and building interiors in the future. And you're gonna hear more about the building interiors in a few weeks.
Nice. All right, so here's the thing. They've talked about this already a little bit with the building interiors, but building interiors is very important for volume of gameplay. And I'll explain that here in a moment after this, but that is something that they've been working on and are currently prototyping at Montreal. And I know a lot of people are like, that sounds like fucking CIG bullshit. That sounds like something they've worked on and we're not going to hear it again in 3 years. This is Montreal. These is the same people who said, we're working on new derelicts. And everyone's like, cool, we'll see it in 2 years. And we saw it like 6 months later. So I have high hopes.
So, what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that the crash derelict system is continuing to evolve as more and more locations are added to the standard system in the upcoming Alpha 3.19. That progress on the new Lorville isn't just looking great and coming along fast, it's also in preparation for its own next evolution that includes building interiors, which, as Maxime said, we'll be discussing in just a couple weeks. And overall, this week is a reminder that iteration is at the heart of any game's development, and that while the new and shiny will always get the most attention, it's just as important to continue maturing what's come before to ensure the better after. And as for the right now and Alpha 3.18, well, that's still going through its paces on our public test universe. But you should keep an eye on the robertspaceindustries.com website and socials for when this huge mammer jammer of a patch takes its next big step. And while we're all waiting, stop leaving all those crashed spaceships littered around all the new racetracks.
No.
We didn't add persistence just to let you all make messes.
Yes, you did.
Well, some of us might have.
Yes, you did.
Benoit definitely did. Now, don't forget that Lunar New Year is also going on right now on the live servers with contests, paints, envelopes, and roosters galore. So be sure you check that out.
Oh,
Star Citizen,
giant cocks.
I'm Jared Huckabee. We'll see you all here next week.
Sela, Yellen, Eutrope, Calliope, Walla, and Lyria all have oxygen in the atmosphere for fire. Oxygen, all right. And can I get anyone who is experienced with fire, like firefighters? I don't know if anyone has experience here, because sometimes we have some firefighters running around. Oxygen, there's a certain amount of oxygen a fire needs to survive. It doesn't need a lot of oxygen, but it definitely needs more than is in some of those moons. I'm almost certain. Has HE Vertigo found out how many cocks he can fit into your mom? He only needs one. Fires in black and vacuum makes sense if you have a oxidizer as part of it. Yeah, fuel air ratio. There needs to be a certain amount of oxygen in the atmosphere. It doesn't have to be empty. It just has to be low enough that it can't self-perpetuate. 16% oxygen. I'm a power engineer. Okay, so let's look at that. Let's look at the oxygen. Let's go with Selin Star Citizen. Let's see if we can find. Surface pressure is 0.001 atmospheres. It has 3% oxygen. So Selin could not support fire. Let's go with Daymar. Daymar has no oxygen. It's just nitrogen, methane, and hydrogen. That would be a terrible place to start a fire. Well, it's 0.2% hydrogen. It's probably not that much. But the methane, 0.1. It's 98% nitrogen. It's pretty interesting, though. All right. Then let's go with Walla. Walla has a total of nothing. It has 21% molecular hydrogen. So Walla could support flames. But I don't know if molecular oxygen is different from regular oxygen, but O2 depends on the material burned. Yeah, oh yeah, they also have talked about that. I did think they talked about it, yeah. for upcoming star systems. So we're talking about how, so for those who just joined us, we were talking about how there are already some problems with CIG just putting campfires in places that shouldn't exist, that shouldn't have campfires in them, because the atmospheres just don't make a lot of sense for having campfires. Because those are great. The shanty towns we saw are great. They're fantastic looking. The problem I have with them is that they're showing all of these on Daymar, which is obviously the test bed, but Daymar has no oxygen. It has almost no pressure. So, like, my joke? What? I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. Is there weather on Daymar? I mean, yeah, there should be weather on all of the moons and planets. The issue of weather is not like for instance, Mars has weather. IRL, Mars has weather. It's just very weird compared to Earth because it's got much low pressure. And I believe the gravity, maybe? I can't remember it exactly. But like they have like sandstorms that like encompass the whole planet in certain eras or certain times. But the actual pressure of those sandstorms is less than like a stiff breeze on Earth. Like you'd barely feel it because it's so low pressure in comparison. Planets and moons all have their own weather. I think as long as it has some kind of atmosphere, it'll have pressure. Oh, it has Calliope is 99% oxygen. That would burn the whole planet. That planet would light on fire if you had fire in there. Yeah, I think they're going to have to do some retcons on some of the moons if they want to do what they want to do. Since Daymar is their Tatooine. So. The only places I wouldn't expect a lot of weather would be like Yela. Maybe Walla. Walla's only got 0.9% atmospheres of pressure. I can see hollow campfires, but the point being again is more of the campfires are an expression of a misunderstanding, I think, often with CIG's art team versus its lore team. Like they're gonna have to go back and figure some of those things out. Like these shanty towns are great ideas, but I fear CIG is gonna start putting them in places because they're cool, rather than if they were practical. Like no one would build a shanty town in Daymar. Why the fuck would you build a shanty? You can't breathe in Daymar. Like, they'd be like, oh, it looks cool to build an entire civilization in the mouth of a volcano. Have you been to a volcano? Have you stood next to lava fields? You would die. Let alone from the fumes, let alone the heat. Like, it's cool looking, but it's dumb as shit in practicality. Yeah, you need an air fuel mixture for some of it. watch out sort of thing. Yeah, but I don't think anyone would survive long enough to build a shanty town on Daymar. It also seems weird that they have shanty towns and star systems on planets with guards with heavy armor. There's really no type of industry going on there. It really depends. Like, I could see them building a shanty towns on Hurston with guards with heavy armor, because those shanty towns would also almost certainly be drug havens or smuggling drops, or participate in other things, which again, that wouldn't come into factor when they did the quantum systems. Paul, why does Yella have 100% oxygen? Why does it say it's breathable? It is breathable. It has no pressure, though, which makes no sense, but look it up. No, it is. I guess it does have pressure. It does have an atmosphere. Huh. I remember the thing was that you used to be able to go to Yella and replenish your oxygen supplies, because it has oxygen on it, so you could replenish it. No, 100% oxygen is not lethal. It's just there are some side effects that can happen if you breathe it in for too long, I believe. It's also very combustible, which is why oxygen tanks are very explosive, or not explosive. They can be. Yeah, I mean, Tree's a paramedic. So you give 100% oxygen to people who are suffering from lack of oxygen. Hello, Paul. So you think the Lorville 2.0 rework? I still think it's 319. But again, I don't think 319 is until June or July. Question, have you watched Zark Media's new machinima? I haven't watched all of it. I've watched portions of it, but it's like 30, 40 minutes long. It's a film. It's a short film. It's not a machinima. It's good though. Some diving operations require 100% oxygen. I believe they try to use helium instead of oxygen for deep diving for that same reason. Question, I'm miffed they didn't go into the transition between biomes. Is it only for derelicts? Is it only for the time Vandals can expedite the transition? What are your thoughts? Oh, on the transitions between the different stages? Almost certainly, this is intended for quantum. Player and quantum. Like, hands down, that's what it's designed for. These different stages are designed for future procedural generation of Rex based off the probability volume generated by the quantum system. That's what this is for. So that when you see a wreck, you can tell how long it's been there based off the age, based on the status of it. Everything is connected to quantum. Quantum is the goddamn game. I'm not even kidding. Quantum is one of the major pillars of the game. After server meshing and like persistence, quantum makes up the majority of the game. Everything is connected to quantum. Your mission system is going to be connected to quantum. Your reputation is going to be connected to the quantum system. Everything is connected to the quantum system, and we're not going to see the quantum system really evolve until I always screw up on this one. I always call it the stream, but it's called something different. Something layer. Y'all chill out with the 100% stuff. Y'all want to talk medical theory? Do it on your own time. It should be on the forum there, Jordan. Jordan, if you don't see it, you go to the Discord. The Discord has a bot that trolls the dev posts, and there's actually a link in there. So. Replication layer. Thank you, Fishy. The replication layer. The replication layer is what's required for quantum to really begin to flesh out, because the replication layer will replicate effects across all of the different servers. It's not just one shard. It'll be over a bunch of different shards. Reason I ask, I don't really see 318 releasing prior to Invictus, so June, July release for them seems a bit too soon after. 318 is almost certainly going to release in March. I think anyone who says it's going to release in outside of March is being overly negative. Because CIG will, even if it's not in a good state, they'll kick it out by March. Because they want to have it stabilized by Invictus. And there's no way they're doing 317.9 for Invictus. It's one of their biggest releases. They will kick that shit. They will throw that baby out, bugs and all, if it means they can sit down and actually stabilize the patch with the 318.1 before it. Yeah, replication layer. I'm enforcing quantum simulation introduction in 319. I think we'll see some of it in 319. I do think, and I also think that a lot of people are being overly pessimistic about the replication layer being done. I think that's going to come out in 319 as well. It could slip to 320, but there is a steady progression that they're currently working at. For instance, everything you just saw is almost 2 months old. Everything you saw in ISC was recorded in December. When can you guess the reputation layer, the replication layer? The replication layer already exists, but it's connected to the shard, it doesn't go across all the shards. I think that's something we'll see in 319. Except the Jared bits. Yeah, I'm sure the Jared bits were recorded recently. But all of the other bits, the bits that you saw with the team from Montreal, they all came in to do a summit in December because we know this because Jared did an ISC with that team in December before the break, where they talked about how they recorded a session for Loreville 2.0 or 3.0, I guess. And lo and behold, here we have it, which means it's been over a month since that was recorded. Yeah, we do already have some quantum guided systems, but I think building any kind of extensive system without persistence doesn't make a lot of sense. They need to get the replication layer in and working before they separate it. Yeah. Oh, can I be at the Last Supper before Quantum goes live? March, excellent. That guarantees a 3.18.1 patch. Almost certainly we will see a 3.18.1 for Invictus. I think that's what we'll see, is a 3.18.1 patch for Invictus, and then we'll see a 3.19 patch for July. And then a 3.20 patch for September. And I don't expect much from the 3.20 patch. Maybe we see a 3.20, maybe it's in November, October and November. But I can almost, I have a feeling that this is just a feeling, this is nothing to do with anything else, that they would want to do a 3.20 patch before CitizenCon because they want to just get it out and then focus on 4.0. Almost certainly they'll do a 3.18.1 for Invictus. I don't think they'll do a 3.18 for Invictus. For those of you who don't know, Invictus is in May. So, yeah, it's at the end of May, usually. Okay, I was really kind of sad when they said the PES was coming out in 3.18. I assumed that all of PS systems were part of that, but the letter just found out that the replication is still MIA. Yes, I believe the replication layer exists locally in the, but it's not across all of the different shards. But once that comes in, that will be the ability for when you crash, when you 30K. You come back in, you're exactly where you left when you crashed, rather than back at whatever location you're at. Question, will you get sucked out of your ship with rapid decompression? No. Rapid decompression doesn't suck you out of a ship. That's a myth created by Hollywood. Rapid decompression is like a stiff breeze, but it's instant. It's not like the extended, like, sucking you out of a pinhole sort of thing. There are decompression breaches on the ISS all the time. All the time. It happens all the time. There's no spaceship that is airtight. There's as airtight as they can get, but there's always leaks. It's a myth that CIG might continue. I don't think so. I think they'll try to keep it more realistic in that sense, because I think CIG wants to keep it more realistic. It would be more cinematic as well to keep it in the more realistic size. I know, I think that sounds weird, but especially if you think of there's decompression, because think about this, Expanse. The Expanse has a scene where there's a giant hole that's shot through one of the early characters who we don't see again because he's dead after a certain episode, that goes through a ship and into vacuum, like a through and through. And they don't get sucked at that hole. It's just they have to, like, very carefully and calmly reseal the atmosphere so that they don't lose everything. And I think that is much more of an interesting thing, where if they, like, a big ship, something big happens and like the like side of a ship rips open, and like you're in 0G, you're stuck to the side as the ship's falling apart, but as you look out, you can see vacuum, and you're like, oh, I'm about to die. And then, like, getting back in and be like, come on over here, because, yeah, and it's easier to do realistic than cinematic too. I agreed. I believe the structure they have planned is basic level equals shard equals replication layer. We then have to have the entity graph servers and clients, that replication layer. Effectively, what I think what's going on right now is that there is a replication layer that exists in the servers on the individual shard. There is no login graph currently. And so what they're going to do for the next patch, for like 3.19, hopefully, is to spread out the replication layer to all shards rather than just one, have it separated from the shard level, and have a login service so you can go back to the server you were last in if you like, if you crash out. Eventually, they want to remove that login service to be more of a back-end sort of switch that it does automatically, but at least give you the option for now to go back to that server if you like, if that server crashed, for the initial response. That too, yeah. But I think the question is more rapid decompression in the sense that you have the through and through where there's a hold, you can see vacuum on the other side, and they don't have their suits on. They don't have spacesuits on. Like, that is, they don't die instantly. They don't get sucked out the hole. That was the question. Rapid decompression is a myth. Okay, will our characters shield their face from the wind if you open up your Cutlass doors in atmosphere, or the actor's status system not be in that depth? I think it really, they'd like to do that, I'm sure, but they'd have to effectively merge nested entities and nested grids so that the wind effect would be affecting you inside the ship when that door opens. And I don't know if they can do that, or if they want to try to do that, because that seems like a lot of work for very little result. No lies. I rapidly decompress every time I have Taco Bell. No, that's rapid expulsion. That's different, North. Like an array/database, one object holding all the data is called, that's called by each server. Yeah, that's effectively what the replication layer is. I believe that there is a replication layer that is connected to each shard so that it knows what you have spawned in that shard. So even if that shard crashes, the replication layer can repopulate everything that was there back on that shard. But it doesn't extend beyond that shard. And I believe the goal is to take the replication layer and have it deconnected from the shard and have it come to do all of the shards at once. So it looks like the missile where it doesn't, it knows where it was and it knows where it's going, but it doesn't know where it is. And the missile knows where it is because it knows where it's not. You already shield your face when the wind blows on a planet. Yes, but that's because you're on the... So this AstroPub shot glass is... It's really dirty. Is your ship, right? Fly in space. You come down to a planet. Boom. You're on the planet. Now, the game treats the interior of the ship as its own instance, as its own, what do they call it? As its own existence. The surface of the planet itself, is completely different. A container, object container. The planet of itself is its own object container. Now, the exterior of the ship exists on top of that object container, so it's part of that object container. But the interior of the ship is a separate object container that doesn't exist as part of this object container. You can still transition from one object container to another through streaming. That's what object container streaming is about. However, everything in here to be simulated with the outdoors would need to be merged into that object container when you open the doors. That may be too much work for the actual value that you actually get from it. So that's the problem. But once you step outside, you merge into that object container. So now any effect that's happening on that object container, wind, solar flares, whatever, will affect you. But when you're inside that object container, it doesn't. So what I'm getting from this is that we're doing shots. No. Yes. Yes and no. You can still see players that are outside your object container, so there are already some overflow between containers. Yes, and you can interact with them. The problem is that, have you ever tried to fire inside a ship from outside a ship, even through open windows? It doesn't always happen. It doesn't always transition from when you shoot inside of a ship. Like, go to a derelict outpost where the ship is coming down, and it's like the cutlass it lands. They'll open up the back container, and those people won't get out. Try shooting at those reinforcements with the back door open, and you won't hit them. Because the bullets do not transition into that object container currently. I'm doing shots. Yeah, effectively, it's probably too much work to get that transition to happen effectively and realistically for the actual value you're getting from that result. If the ships have shielding to prevent atmospheric loss, when the doors are open in vacuum, would decompression occur if shielding was down, and would doors refuse to open in that situation? It depends. Because the way that we're doing this in the future, and I think this is going to be the trick, is that you won't, when the doors open, the ship will register if the outside is a different pressure than the inside. And if the ship registers that the outside is different, then it will simulate the expulsion of the atmosphere. You're not actually shooting atmosphere into the other container. It's just pretending it is, so that oxygen and the atmosphere inside your ship disappears. Which means that you won't have atmosphere. You're decompressed. But it's not actually, you don't actually get oxygen levels increasing if you stood right outside a door. Say you're on Daymar and a cutlass ramp drops and it hasn't depressurized, so all of the stuff would effectively disappear. It's not like if you're standing right there, you would get sudden rush of wind, or you'd get like your HUD would get, oh, it's uptake in oxygen. You wouldn't see anything. You would just lose the oxygen. Did I see your wild question? I did not see your wild question. Question, will ships that have been rammed split in two without killing the crew, essentially giving you the most cinematic and chaotic moment in gaming history? Yes. Almost certainly they will. If the ship can split in two. Like, we've seen, like, the 600i can technically do that in its damaged states. Because I don't think, because I think the goal for CIG is, again, to move away from explosions and move towards disabling. So a death, like a more of a soft death sort of situation, where your ship will experience a soft death unless you hit like the power plant. So the ship could split in two with people still on board, not dead. But that is entirely up to how detailed that simulation for damage is going to be. It's like Space Engineers decompresses is what I'm hearing. I don't know how Space Engineers works, but I've got that stuff, so. And guess what, folks? The same thing will happen to your character. What do you mean? Less booms and more doom. Yeah. If you want to see the big boom, shoot the power plant. But there may be a random chance that it doesn't explode. I think CIG is much more likely to say that destroying a power plant isn't instant death. It's probably got a percentage chance of death. And if the crew is able to disable or turn it off, it will prevent it from dying, from exploding, if you've got a skilled crew. CIG would love to do stuff like that. I can almost guarantee you they would love to see players scrambling around to turn the power, to dump the warp core, effectively, to turn the main power source off so that you can't get a full death and explosion, but then can repair it after everything's done. Do we see? We haven't done the Squadron for notes yet. Now we're gonna do that here in about 5-10 minutes. I'm gonna use the restroom, that kind of stuff, but. Death of your characters will be infrequent as exploding your ship. Yeah, you won't die. You'll just slowly die. You'll be incapacitated more frequently. So, like, you could be in a situation where you're missing large sections of your ship, but still able to fly it because you don't have any atmosphere inside, but the engines still work. And the engines are still connected to the bridge. And there's enough power and engine conduits that are going from the locations to the bridge and to the engines that you can still fly it. So you could go into quantum and see vacuum. It really depends on how detailed the damage simulation they want to get. Aren't fuel tanks more likely to explode than a power plant, which is more likely to catch fire and spark as it falls apart under fire? We don't know. All we know is that CIG wants to remove the big boom as much as possible. They want to have the big boom, but they want to have it in very specific ways. With Sean Tracy on board, I would expect him to use a lot of references to MechWarrior, which has a similar effect for anyone who's played MechWarrior games. Destroying a mech doesn't mean it will explode, but if you hit certain parts of the mech at the right time, it can cause a cascade overload for like the nuclear reactors to go critical and explode and then do more damage as they go off. But that's not guaranteed that they will do that. Isn't that kind of already in game for smaller fighters? They can lose wings and fly. Yes, but right now it's a health pool system, so it's an arbitrary reason why you die. In the future, it's going to be based off of the conduits where the power, the heat, and the heat, power, and fuel flow from the different points to where they need to go, and the actual components. So your ship could be full of holes all over the place and still fly. CIG wants Death of a Spaceman to come after Old Age of a Spaceman. Soft Death has been a great preview of things to come. Loved it, and just a placeholder. Yeah, it's very much a placeholder. But I also say that because it's a placeholder, I expect at least another year before we see that system fully implemented, or even the first version of it implemented. And I feel like the first version is going to be what we have now, but with a new system. Question: how will CIG handle Spider's system with the UE ship graveyard? Must be a tax on the local client. Not really, because they can run Spider as its own server, and with things like Vulcan, they can LOD the shit out of it if you're not seeing all of it, because it's a big sprawling station, and you'll probably only access small portions of it. So it's going to be kind of like any other landing zone. A lot of it is just dressing rather than meat. Space Engineer's decompression is burst of air running out for 2 seconds once breached. Yeah, something like that. But you're not going to see, but it's going to be simulated rather than actual, like, the air goes from this place to this place. All right, I'll be right back, chat. If you're watching this on YouTube right now or after the fact, Twitch chat's about to abuse the heck out of sound effects, so I apologize. I will be back shortly. Mute until I come back if that's the case.
Weapons free, y'all.
I'm out.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Confused, everyone.
Bounty hunting is a complicated.
I'm just an old-fashioned cowboy. Everybody and his dog calls himself an outlaw. I'm just an old-fashioned cowboy.
He knew. He fucked up. It was at this moment that he knew. It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
I'm just an old-fashioned cowboy. Everybody and his dog calls himself an outlaw.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
Cajitas wares, if you have coin. Cajitas wares, if
It was at this moment that he knew.
I'm just an old-fashioned cowboy.
Everybody and his dog calls himself an outlaw.
Cajitas wares, if you have coin.
Everyone. Good news, everyone.
Fish amount.
2 words. Distress bacon.
I'm Fly. I'm Pilot.
Cajitas wares,
Weapon free, y'all.
you have coin.
2 words. Distress bacon.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
I'm just an old-fashioned cowboy.
Fish bounty hunting is a complicated profession. Fish amount.
Money. I'm Fly. I'm Pilot.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
Distress bacon.
Cajitas wares, cajitas wares, you have coin. You have coin.
Sound alerts are off. All right. I see no problem with having a big boom where big boom is appropriate and more likely to occur. I'm thinking more about component targeting and component damage from combat rather than wear and tear. I get that, but I also think that explosions are the most pleasing, but also the most boring ways of finishing people off. There's something very anticlimactic about killing someone, having them explode, and then they're just dead. There's no interesting gameplay when you have people who are effectively just pinatas exploding in pleasing eyesight sort of thing. What if you put them in the torpedo? Hey, Celine, how you doing? Dren 12 plus Vulcan allows for massive space battles and things like Spider Cathcart on the client. Yeah. Question, will missions and rep ever give you more than just monetary gain? Yes. Example, exclusive gear, cosmetics, access to restricted areas, etc. Yes. I don't think Sergio would answer that, but I almost guarantee you yes. Shit, posting on Spectrum is the real PvP. Yeah. You know, right? That's good to know. Atomized Bounty can't beg for their life. Which question? Are you talking about the mission rep? I saw that already one, if that's the one I'm talking about. All right, y'all. Let's get to the actual reading of the Squadron 42 monthly report. Been streaming for... man, time flies when you're having fun. I'm also exhausted still, so it'd be nice to sit down. All right. And do this. So for those of you who've not done these before, I do these what are called capsules. These are small little sections of this stream that I will record for YouTube after the fact. So they get released as their own separate ones because people wanted me to do these sorts of smaller, well, I thought the idea of taking small chunks of this and turning them into content for YouTube, because a lot of people are interested in this information or my thoughts or stuff, look at stuff, but aren't willing to watch 4 hours of a live stream. So I decided to start putting these into smaller chunks to allow people to watch them after the fact. But also to encourage you all to come in live and actually interact and do these sorts of things. So I won't really be referring to chat a lot. So if you ask a question, I may not see it. If you bring something up, I may not see it. So if you are in chat right now and you see someone say, hey, question, what does that mean? Especially if people get frustrated because I'm not paying attention to chat, just explain, hey, he's not going to pay attention to chat until he's finished, because this is for recording for YouTube sort of thing. So you can think of this as you're watching a YouTube video being recorded live, and then afterwards we'll do a little Q&A where you can ask all those questions. So, Paul, do you have a cat? I have 3. I have 3: a tuxedo named Jack, a tabby named Abby, and a calico named Fancy. All right. Skitties. Those are them right there. This is a rerun. Powerball numbers are as follows. It shouldn't be that delayed. It's only a few minutes delayed. I'm actually looking at it right now. Skitties. Yeah, it's only a few, like a minute or two delayed. Oh, do we know who's on the cat table this weekend? It's Subliminal and Zero State. So it's Zero and Subliminal. They're on there. All right. All right. Getting the recording. Hello and welcome to another Office Hours capsule. That's right, capsule. I'm gonna do it every time. This is a small section of my Office Hours live streams that are live on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. You can come join this wonderful chat. Say hi, chat. Live and ask questions before or after. We do a nice little hangout and talk about the news and other things. We talk about lore, we talk about news, we talk about the game. We often go off in random tangents about different things. So come join us live for that. But today we are going to be going over the November and December monthly report for Squadron 42. This is not a summary. This is the entire thing. I'm going to read the whole thing from beginning to end and give my interpretation here and there, maybe fill you in, especially if you haven't been following this, because we've been doing this for months now, following the progression of Squadron 42 and Star Citizen. There may be some spoilers in here. I try to do my best, or CIG does their best not to kind of do full spoilers, but if you're really interested in what's going on at CIG with what they're focusing on with Squadron 42, this is probably the best way of doing it currently, because they don't really give us a lot of updates, sometimes through the progress tracker they do, but this is the best kind of real-time update on what's going on with Squadron. So, without any further ado, as you can tell from this length, this is going to be a big one, so make sure you grab yourself some water, some tea, some food, sit back, relax. Let's get started with the November-December monthly report for Squadron 42. All right. AI content. Towards the end of the year, the AI content team completed a significant number of tasks for Chapter 15. This included prototype animations for crowds and combatants alongside developing several usables and animation sets for dejected characters around the level. The welding engineer also received a lot of improvements. The team made extensive pass on the animations and progressed with the technical challenges of getting the welding helmet, multi-tool parts, and the welding effects working together. Considerable work was done to get a basic version of an AI character interacting with a variety of usables found in living spaces. The bridge crew behavior and animations also received further iteration and are now starting to look polished. Animation supported AI features with box carrying, which resulted in a number of significant visual improvements. A large number of production and organization work was done too, resulting in a comprehensive animation schedule that details all the known work required for Squadron 42 to be content complete. As part of this, the team will now implement usables and behaviors into the final game levels earlier in the pipeline. So, for those of you who may not be here, this may be your first time actually reading some of these, Star City or Squadron 42 has several levels complete. Now, complete, meaning they've built everything they wanted to build in it, but they still have to go through testing and other phases. They've gone through most of the early levels. There's something like 23 to 28 levels. I always forget those ones. It's in the 20s, mid to upper 20s in terms of chapters. So they're getting content complete on animations or on AI content, which seems like they're finishing up the content that they need for the AI overall. Much of the later levels are done and much of the earlier stuff is done. So that's just this middle section, many of which had been languishing for a long time with some stuff just not being updated. So they're finally getting around to it. So that's the kind of context of what's going on. But we're seeing a lot more behavior that is not directed towards belligerence. This is some of the first time we've seen, seems like, non-combat AI updates for AI content, which is nice. AI features. Last year, the team implemented AI functionality into manned turrets. Like other objects that NPCs need to be able to use, the turrets have been set up as usables, which describes the logic and animations required to use them. As with the player, animations are synchronized with the turret movement so that the AI grips the turret by its handles while rotating on the spot to aim horizontally and tilts the turret up and down to aim vertically. The team also worked on implementing a wide range of panic, cower, and surrender behaviors for both unarmed civilians and enemy NPCs that have run out of ammunition and weapons. If an unarmed civilian sees that an enemy has an unholstered weapon, they will notify characters nearby using a wildline and then panic run to a hidden point of cover. They will continue to run away from the enemy if their cover is compromised. Unarmed characters that hear this information will turn to react to the enemy and then panic themselves. By randomizing the speed at which the NPCs react, the devs can generate natural-looking range of behaviors from crowd responding to a threat. Man, it's gonna be funny to walk up to the dude who's got his back turned with a gun out, and the guy's like the last one to realize. He looks around and is like, why is everyone running? And then turns around and goes, oh! And runs. And this is all stuff that's features on civilian AI and behavior, which is nice. Armed enemies that have run out of ammo and weapons will cover while searching for valid ammo and weapons to pick up. Again, if their cover is exposed, they will reevaluate and run to a new position. If the player aims at an armed or unarmed NPC, they will stay at the spot but turn to face the player and move through a sequence of surrender animations whilst communicating with the player. As part of combat, the team worked on the medic AI behaviors to allow NPCs to find incapacitated peers that need reviving and use med pens to get them back into the fight. This involved bringing together numerous existing functionalities from various areas, including the usable system, use channel to revive, consumable items, the med pen, synchronized animations between two NPCs, ragdoll into animations to allow characters to stand up from ragdoll, and subsumption to script the behavior. The next stage is integrating this behavior with the standard react to presumed dead bodies behavior to generate more complex behaviors. AI features also started to work on the new non-human character. This is not Vanduul, by the way. 100% this is not Vanduul. Because they mention Vanduul characters when they talk about Vanduul. Saying non-human and character implies this is an AI, or not AI, this is a another one of the races. So, Xi'an, Tavarin, or Banu. We don't know, because all three could actually be involved in Squadron 42. Tavarin are often in the military, they often serve in the fleet. The Banu we saw references to the Banu in one of the side missions for the vertical slice, so they could be there. And the Xi'an, I know, are referenced in Squadron 42 as well. So that's interesting. This involved creating a new core set of animations for the new creature and slotting it into an existing framework. From there, they're able to rapidly develop the core functionality, which was passed to the design team for feedback. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. Towards the end of the year, a few areas of work were revised to tidy up loose ends. The first of these was the Vanduul. See, as I've said, they mentioned the Vanduul. They would have said Vanduul if it was Vanduul. Investigation behavior during the cat and mouse gameplay section. Vanduul now investigate the floor vents in the room with different animations to different alertness levels. Splinter Cell with Vanduul. For those of you who don't know, there's also a behavior that the Vanduul have where if they get in melee, you will have to dodge. Dark Souls style. Out of the way. There is some Dark Souls stuff in Star Citizen, and it's very funny. Soul Citizen. Soul Citizen. A Dark Citizen. And now there's going to be some stealth gameplay, which is interesting. After feedback from the design team, new functionalities were added for the accuracy calculation. This included adding a mercy timer, firing time, and time since scene accuracy modifiers. The mercy timer gives the player a fighting chance to escape from heavy fire by making the AI inaccurate for a set period when the player's health has reached a certain threshold. So they're adding Stormtrooper aim when you are super low in health. The firing time accuracy modifier reduces the accuracy over firing periods for similar purposes. Time since scene accuracy modifier allows the player a grace period after moving out of cover, during which the attacker's accuracy will be lower. The accuracy distance calculation was also changed to be curve-based for greater control. Trying to simulate, I guess it's also simulation. If you don't know where someone is and someone just suddenly jerks out of cover, you probably won't have as accurate of a shot on somebody. And the same thing with if you see somebody who is really wounded and trying to move away, you might hesitate before you try to kill them simply because, part of you take over, especially if you're not fully aware of the situation. All right. That's really cool. There's a lot of stuff they've worked on. This is all stuff which is on top of the features we saw at CitizenCon. This is all much more, using the same system, though. They use this system called, I think it's called the tag system that they use. They can just slap tags onto them, which will represent different behaviors, which will affect how the AI react to certain situations. So, all right. AI tech. During the last month of 2022, the AI tech team progressed with features required for both Persistent Universe and Squadron 42. The team continued to iterate on more complex navigation links to extend the capabilities of NPCs and where they're able to move, including implementing adapters for airlocks and elevators. Now NPCs will know that in order to traverse an airlock, they will need to interact with multiple consoles to adjust pressure and open the door. I was going to sneeze, and now I can't. I'll sneeze after I've unmuted myself. For now, NPCs will know in order to traverse an airlock, they'll need to interact with multiple consoles to adjust the pressure and open the door. For elevators, navigation links were created to connect multiple floors. A navigation link was also created to request reconnection with navigation mesh triangles each time an elevator stops at a floor to allow NPCs to transition in and out. Based on the navigation link connections, an NPC will now know how to request an elevator to go to a specific floor. New event notifications were also added, sent by the elevator when it arrives at the floor so that the actor will know to get on or off. At the end of the year, the base functionality for NPCs driving ground vehicles was completed. NPCs can now move a vehicle and get to into the driver's seat, find a path suitable for the size of the vehicle, and drive along it. This work involved the creation of new subsumption tasks, a new movement request type, and updating the movement planner to know how to process this request. The team also added new functionality to the navigation systems that marks entities to be ignored during navigation mesh generation. NPC perception was another major topic worked on towards the end of the year. The team implemented a new adapter for action areas to specify lightness/darkness, which will influence NPCs' visual perception. A new extender to propagate engine sounds as stimuli was also created. This will make the NPCs aware of vehicles in their proximity. This was the first step towards behaviors that will react to ground vehicles and spaceships. While working on perception improvements, the devs fixed AI visual perception through glass. Now, NPCs will be able to detect targets behind glass and also understand that, in order to shoot them, they need to move to the other side. For locomotion, improvements continued on the sharp turn assets and how they're triggered for alien characters or at walking speeds. Related to this, the work began on following tech, which will be used in connection with buddy AI behavior. For this, the team improved soft stops, collision avoidance with players, and speed handling based on the leader's change in speed. For the Apollo subsumption tool, new functionality was added to create and modify the subsumption master graph. A lot of feedback from the designers was implemented, including the addition of an interface to create roles and sub-roles, find reference functionality, improved interaction with functions, and the multi-graph tab, and improvements to grid snapping. So all of that was the same stuff that was in the Squadron 42 update, or Star Citizen update, but with connections to all of this other stuff, it makes a lot more sense. They spent a lot of time in November and December working on civilian AI tech, effectively, and finished up their vehicle stuff. They had been working on NPCs using vehicles and reacting to vehicles for a while, so like NPCs can now shoot at ships with their FPS weapons, or shoot at vehicles with their FPS weapons. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes on. It's also important to remember that none of this tech is in Star Citizen right now, nor will it be implemented until after 4.0, at or after 4.0 is released. So a lot of this stuff is still waiting for server meshing before it can end up in Star Citizen. But it's first being developed for Squadron. So, AI vehicles. The vehicle feature team worked on significant improvements and features for flight AI, including largely completing their work on several sections involving ships attacking actors on ground. This work involves around the redesign of the core combat logic. We're working towards more varied and interesting ship combat experience than before, so we're planning out and making changes to combat AI and testing them in Squadron 42 to get the experience we want. AI vehicle team. All right, pretty good. Like I said, they're talking about the ability to react to and fire at other players or AI on ships or vehicles, and then also those vehicles and ships being able to fire at ground targets. You can sort of see that in 318, because when you get into a ship at 318, you will actually see, at one point you could see the entirety of the local AI population walking around with your HUD. So there is some aspects of this which is trying to be transitioned over to it. Animation. Last month of 2022 saw gameplay animation working on Vandal executions, zero-G player movement, and various animation sets for background life. They also added skill level variation to takedowns alongside new weapons. They then shot mocap for a variety of additional scenes and gameplay needed to create facial animations for various story and background characters. I think it's almost the same thing as the Star Citizen one, but I thought that was maybe for trailers and such. I guess that was meant for Squadron, which makes more sense. But yeah, Vandal executions and then kind of different stuff like that. So yeah. Art characters. The concept artist worked on tattoo and armor variation concepts for the Screaming Galsons to help fill out the faction and continue to work on the campaign on a key campaign character. The Screaming Galsons are a pirate faction. They are one of the major antagonists of Squadron 42, as far as I can tell. They have a huge amount of work that has been put into them, which is different from the one we know about, which is known as OMC. So they may be more of the overt antagonist. OMC are kind of like the shadowy in the background guys. We don't really know that right now. But the Galsons are definitely, they've been mentioned in lore. We know they exist. We know they're a pirate faction. So artists also continue working on the Screaming Galsons armor alongside the Navy pilot flight suit and a new creature. There we go. Tech art skinned the main Navy jumpsuit and paired assets for deck crew, engineers, and gunners. Art environment. Environment art approached content complete on several chapter locations, including chapters 7 and 11. New asset kits were currently in progress to help flesh out spacescaping for flight-based chapters, while Vandal ship work continues as the team prepares to hand them over to be set up. So yeah, effectively from chapters 5 through 20 are the heavy focus that they've been working on right now. So that checks out as well. All right. I am not an engine seer. I'm not a tech priest. I am not a Starfleet engineer. I am not an engineer. I'm not part of the Forerunner's creations to disassemble and reassemble a freaking electric car by rote memory. I can't do any of those things. I am not fluent in engine speak. If you are, please let me know in the comments below. Now, this is almost certainly the same thing we saw from the Squadron 42 or Star Citizen monthly report, which we did last week. And as far as I could tell, someone posted that this is just optimizations. It's effectively what the engine was this month. These last months, they just focused on optimizations. But I'm still going to read through it just in case you care more about Squadron 42 than Star Citizen. You didn't watch the Star Citizen one, or you just want to hear both at the same time. It's okay. I understand. I have a very, very soothing voice. So let's get on to the engine section. November and December were busy months for the physics team. Aside from plenty of bug fixing and supporting Alpha 318, they worked on various optimizations. For example, the cost of performing a part OBB versus grid cell overlap checks was amortized by performing them in one call for a grid node instead of cell by cell. Also, substepping for attached and AI-controlled NPCs on the server was disabled to bring back actor entity step performance. Several internal data structures were compacted and reordered for a smaller memory footprint and better member alignment. On the renderer, the team enabled the Gen 12 pipeline and scene rendered by default. This will be featured in Alpha 318. Which is a major milestone on the road towards completing Gen 12 transition and providing a Vulcan backend. Following October's work on particles, further substantial progress was made. Gen 12 refraction and half-resolution rendering support for GPU particles was added. The particle stage and GPU handler refactored, and particle shader background compilation was enabled. Furthermore, particle split for each hierarchy level are now updated in a way that ensures UAV resources stay consistent across each pass and don't change. Moreover, debug visualization code for various systems was ported to Gen 12, and PSO caching for projectiles and particles was improved. Regarding atmosphere and volumetric clouds, an initial draft of a new temporal render mode was submitted and will continue to be worked on in the coming months to provide better rendering performance of ray-marched volumetric clouds and atmosphere. Furthermore, various options for refined cloud shaping were brainstormed with tech art and will hopefully find their way to release soon. On Core Engine, the team completed work on V2 of pack data file support for game engine, or for the engine, game and tool side. On that note, the system now also provides an efficient lock mechanism for legacy pack files, as well as a much faster access to files inside pack files, embedded in the main P4K data file, both of which significantly improve the loading of object containers. Additionally, the mapping of threads on Intel CPUs with P/E cores was rewritten. Critical threads such as main, render, and network threads are ensured to always run on performance cores to avoid the otherwise poor performance on affected CPUs. These changes are currently being modified on the PTU. Also, support for page sizes larger than 4 kilobytes, aka huge pages, which added to the engine, at the moment on Linux only. It's currently used for stacked text and data segments, as well as physics allocations. Using huge pages reduces the pressure on the TLB cache, the part of the CPU translating virtual to physical addresses, which should help with performance. With Clang, just moving the text segments to huge pages gave a 7% speed up. Furthermore, the latest version of Blink 2 was integrated, and a few audio-related bugs fixed on video playback, manifesting themselves as random clicks during playback. Another area that progressed well was the remote shader compile server used to build shader caches, etc. Due to increasing usage of the server by development teams and the build processes, proper support for fallback agents as well as server throttling was implemented to deal with times of extreme load and allow for more distributed compilation. At that point, it made sense to rewrite various parts of the server code to allow more robustness, better logging, and increased performance. Lastly, shape unification was completed and entity area support was added. A copy/paste bug in the entity aggregate manager that caused a lot of unnecessary memory access was fixed, and viz area loading was refactored to support batch conversion from previous versions of sterilized viz area data. A lot of that is just optimizations making things better, which is generally what Engine is doing at this point, is trying to improve the current situation with some new additions in the back end, usually not so much. All right. Features vehicle. Last 2 months of the year saw vehicle features largely completing a full rework of quantum travel, which is being integrated into Squadron 42 for testing. This continues to be continues from the quantum boost feature mentioned in previous reports, and significantly improves the overall feature implementation. They also supported the VFX team in integrating new effects for quantum travel. So they're mostly done with the rework for quantum travel. So it sounds like they're effectively done. That's the quantum boost and all that other stuff that people have been losing their mind about. They also worked on a recall feature available for various military ships in the game. This uses AI pathfinding tech used in the PU and will allow various Squadron 42 levels to be completed. This means that you will be able to, I think, recall your ship. If you are out of your ship, the ship will then fly to you so you can get in your ship and fly away. Obviously, to complete a mission, you need to be able to get out of there. Now, I don't know if those recall features, I think a lot of people got super excited about, oh, I can call my ship by AI and I can just get into it and fly away in game. I don't think that's going to happen in Star Citizen. I think it's a Squadron 42 thing only, which we've seen on the mobiGlas of being able to recall your ship with the Squadron 42 mobiGlas. I don't think we're going to see that in Star Citizen, but we might. It just has been only mentioned in Squadron 42, so I wouldn't put any kind of baggage towards it or any kind of hopes towards that. Vehicle features then completed a significant refactor of the aiming system and are currently working with UI to implement new aiming reticles and pips to go alongside it. This will result in a huge performance improvements in aiming accuracy and reliability. It's currently being tested to improve a combat experience. Different reticles, I guess, okay? Significant time towards the end of 2022 went into multifunction display, MFD, heads-up display, HUD, and vehicle UI reworks. The based MFD system is making huge strides, and we're partially implemented most of the core MFD screens for ships using the new building block system. We're just starting to build the new HUD, which deeply integrates the MFD system with the configuration options, the MFD casting options, vehicle feature scene. This is interesting because this is a brand new system. They've mentioned this before of the old new HUD, but they had been working on variations of the HUD, and I think they completely threw it out. So I think they're going on a brand new HUD, and haven't told us that the current HUD that was the new HUD is old now. They've thrown it out and gone back to scraps from the starting points. That is very interesting, because CIG doesn't like to admit when they throw it out. But the HUD we have right now is an old HUD that is legacy. It's probably going to go away. As of this reading and other references in the past, it is gone. Which means that explains why the Drake HUD and the Aegis HUD, which we saw being at various stages of development, haven't come out yet, because they scrapped it and didn't tell us. That is a problem, though, because I think that indicates that CIG isn't willing to tell us when they've entirely scrapped something. Tell us these things, CIG. It helps people understand, because a lot of people have been waiting for the new HUD system, and they haven't had any updates. Knowing that, hey, we scrapped this, we're going back to basics, people would still be mad, but they wouldn't be as mad or it wouldn't be as wondering. They'd be like, cool, we can't wait to see the new one. People are generally understanding, and I think most people would rather know than not know. Control surfaces continue to develop, and in the last 2 months, the team improved stalling and transitions. For example, when the ship detects it's about to stall, it can automatically enable thrusters to stop it from falling. Similarly, when a ship has detected it's going fast enough to sustain control surface flight, it can automatically shut down its maneuvering thrusters and start flying solely with control surfaces. This is greatly improving the atmospheric flight sections of the campaign. That is very cool. That means we're going to see the control surfaces be, at least in Squadron 42, be implemented, and then it'll be ported over to Star Citizen, which is a cool idea, and means that ships that are more like planes, the Arrow, the Gladius, and so on, will likely have better fuel efficiency in atmosphere than they currently do, because they don't have to worry about using their thrusters as much. It's very cool. All right. Gameplay story. Gameplay story worked on a range of different tasks during November and December, including preparing and shooting mocap to update various scenes. Mocap from previous shoots was also used. For example, to help characters climb back into ships after speaking with a player. A scene in Chapter 8 was updated to ensure the character could interact with a variety of props instead of just performing visual inspections. The team made sure the character used AI poses to allow them to break out of the scene if needed. The character also interacts well with the Argo MPUV, meaning they can fly into the Idris before starting their scene. Our Short King is a main ship in Squadron 42. Confirmed. Send it into the hills. The Argo MPUV is a flyable ship in Squadron 42. Heck yeah. All hail our Short Orange King. Which also makes sense, because we've actually seen some rework and updates that they've been trying to make to it. So another area further explored was unholstering and holstering. This time, the team was able to make a character grab the multi-tool and datapad from the exact position it attaches to the character and place it back. Interesting. By the way, with the MPUV, that means that we may actually see, I don't think we will, I'd love to see a MPUV only flight, like run of Squadron 42. That would be interesting as hell. CIG, please. Completely scrap the entire game just for that, and just make that a possibility. A number of updates were also made to characters in chapters 4 and 8. This involved utilizing the latest female walk cycle to enable the AI to seamlessly enter and exit scenes. A significant update was made to a scene in chapter 13, with the team adjusting animations to work with the final geometry of the level, making it so the character can speak to the player from a better position. A major review of scenes that had been worked on throughout the past year was always done too. This led to increased animation quality, either by reusing the latest mocap or fixing what was already in place. Many new animations were created, and polish passes were done on animations to further improve scenes alongside general maintenance and bug fixing. All right. Graphics and VFX programming. The VFX programming team began implementing new quantum travel and boost effects. These effects are now in basic functional state and are triggering at the general and correct time. Work will continue to expose timing controls and implement the functionality for adapting these effects to any size ship. Work on the fire hazard system is wrapping up again, starting with the implementing request for controlling fire and its propagation for design purposes. On the visual side, the team are currently planning out the work required for reaching the visual goals set by the VFX art. Okay, so it seemed like the quantum travel and quantum boost stuff is starting to become more finalized. And remember, this is all stuff from November, December of last year. Level design. The social team progressed well in the final months of 2022, including continued scene work on their assigned chapters. New onboarding documentation was also created to better support new starters. Very cool. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, Squadron 42 is broken up into 3 different level types: FPS, social, and flight. So I guess it's just the social team's working on some new stuff as well. So you can think of this kind of like Mass Effect, where you have the on-flight, you know, like the combat roles, and then you're on the ship and you're kind of doing social stuff. But you also add the, you know, flight and kind of combat, flight combat versus on-foot combat. And all of these are interchangeable, so you could have a social scene that turns into an FPS scene, which turns into a flight scene, or whatever. They kind of flow within one another, but they're built separately for different teams. Narrative. November and December were busy months for Narrative Team. Firstly, they had a week-long performance capture shoot in the UK to close out capturing wildlines for one of the enemy factions, probably the Galsons, as well as narrative content scenes for a set piece. They also picked up content to support the new dynamic conversation system that will provide exciting opportunities for NPCs to chat with one another. This opens up a lot of opportunities for contextual conversations that can help maintain the illusion of life and storytelling outside of dedicated scripted scenes. When in Star Citizen CIG, that is desperately needed in Star Citizen. Cool, I like it, but also an SC, please. The team continued to hold reviews on the various design teams to develop updated scripts and provide placeholder recordings. This is to ensure that lines are not only creating the right dramatic beats, but also clearly indicating what the player is meant to do in order to progress. Narrative also met with characters to ensure that all necessary costumes have been requested to support the various chapters that specific NPCs appear in. Based on the scope of the script, it shouldn't come as a surprise that there's a lot of characters that players will meet over the course of the game. This list is complicated by the fact that some of the characters will have a schedule that will drive them to work from work to rest, necessitating a variety of clothing to be available. Costume changes for characters, that's interesting. I don't think I've seen many games that do that, where you have different costumes for the same character that'll depend on when they are. That would be kind of interesting. And for those of you who don't know, the game is anywhere, like the main story campaign, last we heard, was about 20 hours, with the full optional stuff adding to about 40 hours of gameplay. So this isn't like a 4-hour COD gameplay, sort of like COD campaign. This is a massive gameplay compared to, like I said, I compare it more to Mass Effect because it's probably the closest you're going to see in modern gaming to what Squad 42 is attempting. All right, tech animation. Tech animation spent the end of the year focusing on head asset processing. We've taken some long overdue actors and started to the internal processing procedure to create their likenesses. This includes creating over 78 scans per head asset and processing them to the neutral head asset. Some of these actors were scanned over 7 years ago on the main shoot for Squadron 42. They look quite different these days. Tech animation team. The team take these complex scans and break them down into individual muscle movements and apply them to the facial rig asset, ultimately including them in the gene pool to give more variety to the heads and faces seen in game. Very cool. VFX. Through November and December, the VFX team progressed on the particle library overhaul. This included creating a custom level showing all the available effects. This is useful for VFX artists to quickly view the effect libraries. Artists also continued to support art and design teams on key locations and cinematic scenes. Elsewhere, working alongside VFX programmers, the new quantum travel effects were made functional. Previously, they were in engine prototypes. Having seen these effects working properly, there is still some tweaking to be done to better match the prototype. Here we go. So, this is a fairly robust aspect. Some of the stuff is similar stuff, VFX stuff, tech animation. The narrative showing that there's going to be multiple character costumes for characters, depending on their cycles. So a lot of the same AI behavior we'll see in Star Citizen will also be in Squadron 42 in terms of having a schedule. Social team was working a little bit. We see some new quantum travel. The new quantum travel stuff is getting more focused. The Argo MPUV is confirmed flyable. Some mocap stuff done, some story stuff. MFD system is completely overhauled. They've completely thrown out the old MFD with a new MFD, which we've heard a little bit before, but now it's kind of more confirmed, and it's using we already knew that, the HUD. The MFD is actually informing the HUD creation, is what we're guessing, but the MFD is almost completely done on building blocks. This is, again, back in December. November, December. Engine, lots of optimizations. They've content complete on several chapters, including chapter 7 and 11. The Screaming Galson's got a bunch of stuff. The Navy jumpsuits got updated. Vandal executions, player zero-G movement, background life stuff, AI vehicles, being able to attack characters on the ground, AI tech, a lot of being able to drive, AI NPCs being able to get in and drive vehicles, as well as following tech. And then we've got the extended issue of AI features where AIs can surrender, a lot of civilian overhaul for like civilian kind of behaviors in war zones, as well as more cat and mouse, and the mention of a new creature. A creature which we haven't heard, or a new creature, alien creature kind of thing. Not Vandal, not human, but probably not like the whip crab or the boreal stalker. We're talking like possibly Tavarin, Banu, or Jian. So interesting to see that. Plus, again, more stuff for AI content with being able to swap out multi-tools, being able to do things welding and such. So a lot of AI stuff for Squadron 42, honestly. But that's pretty extensive. Now, as always, I want to hear what you think about this in the comments below. Let me know that. And of course, join us live Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, with these wonderful folks here, and discuss these as we talk about them live. And lastly, I do say this because it does help me understand. Do you find this helpful? If you find this helpful, let me know in the comments, because I do these to try to help y'all kind of fully get the context, especially since I always hear people say, Squadron 42, where's Squadron 42? What's going on with Squadron 42? And we have this asset, which not a lot of people know exists, where they talk about what's going on, what's being worked on with Squadron 42. Now, of course, we don't know what percentage it's done, but we do know what is the content that's being worked on. And there's some interesting insights into the game while we're reading this. But let me know if this is valuable as well. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black. All right, ended the recording. And cut. How y'all doing? Professor, excited to showing. Hey, I'm really cool. I'm really excited about the character like costume thing. I have a theater background. I have a minor in theater from college, and the idea of having costume changes for characters in a video game is kind of nuts. Because you think about it, most video games do the TV show thing. Like, this person wears this outfit every time they're on screen. And some TV shows vary it up from episode to episode, but rarely do you see TV shows have costume changes in the middle of an episode, unless there's some big event for doing so. This is, and video games, they rarely do that ever, unless a player specifically dresses up that character in a different outfit. This is a very interesting idea. Well, it'll be interesting to see how it goes through. They've said releasing when the gameplay comes out for the ship. Yes. What are the new ships that we can expect to actually release? The Spirit, probably the end of this year. And they mentioned a bunch of other stuff. That was all from last week, though. I can't wait to get through Squadron using only MPVU and a crown. I would love to be like the MPVU run of Squadron. I can see CIG maybe adding something like a PU in terms of form of ship upgrade, buying a beck and call for your ship or something like that. Maybe. I'm hearing a lot of complete. Please, Squadron 42 next year, please. We'll see. Did you guys have any better performance in 318? Mostly side grades, but some better performance, yeah. See if you have any questions about some of this stuff. TV show, musical episodes, maybe? Yeah, maybe, yeah. It may mean that we have, because they have extensive social sections, and we know that a lot of part of the game takes place in and around the giant mining platform, the Shubin mining platform. I can't remember the name of it. I almost can guarantee you that the Shubin mining platform has like a shopping area. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's an entire social part of the game where you get dressed up in civvies and go to the shopping district on the mining platform with some of your wingmen and some of the other crew members, which sounds really anime shopping episode-esque, but like that makes sense with the kind of game that Squadron 42 is trying to be, to kind of like build out relationships with those characters. There is no romance options in Squadron as far as we know, though. I mean, military people going to bars, yeah. I mean, that could be an easily kind of branching decision. Do you go with this pilot who's going to go to the bar and get shit-faced? Do you go with this pilot who's going to go to the club and dance? Are you going to go with say these engineers who are going off to the like technical side of things? Which relationship do you build in terms of overall experience? Because you can only choose one. Wing Commander in their bars, yeah. Chris Roberts loves his bars. He even admits that he's just like, he knows, when you talk to Chris Roberts in bars, he's like, I love my bars. Every game that Chris Roberts has ever made has had a bar in it, which is a major part of the plot of the game. Do you think the MFD changes will change Asperia and Red HUDs and take NPC combat chat video that pops up off the target MFD? Probably. It'll probably fix that a little bit. Hey, Zero. Welcome. We just finished reading the Squadron 42 monthly report. There's some cool shit in there. For instance, did you know, Zero, that the HUD, you probably had heard that the HUD we currently have is the old HUD and they're coming out with a new HUD. But did you know that it's a brand new HUD from scratch that's being based off of the new MFD system? Because that's what we just found out. Also that you can fly the MPUV in Squadron. CIG making something from scratch? I never. We did talk a little bit about how CIG, it's like, goddamn it, CIG, why didn't you just tell us you were scrapping the whole thing instead of just stopping to talk to us? Because remember, they said they had the Aegis HUD and the Drake HUD that they were working on. It's like, why did you tell us you threw the whole damn thing out? Had a good 4 hours of PT without any major issues. Didn't do Jumptown, but there were 122 players in the server. Not bad. How was Jumptown, Zero? Was it as chaotic as always? Hopefully it means that the HUD stuff may be customizable, because that's the one thing I think for accessibility is being able to just change the colors of the HUD. South is very cool during JT. Seeing ships crash. We used to do that all the time with like EMPs and stuff like that, but I can imagine JT being a graveyard after a few minutes, after a few hours. There are multiple entrances now, Scott. Jumptown is much bigger than it used to be. Jumptown after party, the fight for the salvage. I believe there's 3. I think there's 2 entrances, but there's also another like hatch you can enter. I don't know if I remember correctly. I have to double check that. I've gotten the idea that how CIG works. They absolutely come up with an excellent and beautiful HUD and forget the accessibility settings, get reminded of it, scrap it, and make it all again. That's very CIG. Just 2 airlocks? There's no hatch, just 2 airlocks? Yeah. I thought I remembered there being another entrance that was not just the airlocks. Curious about the A2 in Jumptown now. The A2 will just... It still doesn't blow up anyone. If you're inside, you're fine. Because the bomb doesn't affect anyone inside a building. Very CIG in software development. That's what I'm thinking. The middle has a hidey hole. Will ships have different color coolant to indicate different formulas, just like cars? I don't know. I know that they want to do different fuel types. So like hydrogen will have different hydrogen fuel, different kind of like octane levels sort of thing for hydrogen fuel, for efficiency and such. So maybe. There's a rooftop section, and you can kind of see the insides from there, but you can't enter. Okay. Then in the meantime, a modder will solve the problem with a simple and elegant way, which will be broken, and a new HUD is released. Had an interesting experience with bunkers after I killed a hostile. Others responded. I know you're in here. Find him. And when they spotted me, he yelled that he sees me. It was like they're actually actively looking for somebody, and someone ignoring the guards. They do that. They do actively hunt you in game. They're supposed to, at least, as long as the server FPS is high enough. I've been saying for a long time that the issue with AI is not that the AI sucks. It's that the AI is limited by the server. So if the server tick rate is high enough, we'll get more. By the way, Zero, hopefully you're still coming on to the Captain's Table on Saturday. We're going to have Zero on Captain's Table with Subliminal. We're going to be talking a little bit about the meta of Star Citizen. Things like the ballistics and the changes to the meta that we expect in terms of that kind of gameplay over the next course of this year, and of course the changes to like they'd like to see change to improve the game. So high deuterium hydrogen. In ISC, Jared showed a derelict stages. Do you think that that's how they'll handle entity garbage left by players? Almost certainly. Almost certainly. But I also think that that's very much connected to dynamic wrecks as well. So wrecks like spawned by the quantum system, by the probability volume of a quantum system. Yeah, server FPS determines whether you face AI McDerp or Skynet's SEAL Team 6, effectively, yeah. Even though it's bigger and has 2 machines, you can still pull boxes with only 2 people inside. You should be able to do that just in general. But multiple entrances are a good way of preventing people from just bottlenecking, so you can still sneak in if you can, if people aren't paying attention. Did you see Kate's video of the new siege test? She landed a C8R on a rooftop, and the Ninetales NPC actually approached from the side and tried to sweep inside of the ship. I didn't see that. No. Was that in 318 or was that in 317? Either way, if they shoot you, they'll snipe you with an SMG from 2 miles away with a 360 no scope. Yeah. Ever played Terminator 2000 games from years ago? 20 years plus? I don't remember that. Maybe. I don't remember it, though. I can see decay rates on player entities degrade and self-remove over time. For sure that's going to happen. There's definitely going to be some sort of cleanup that has to happen just to keep the server from crashing. Obviously, they want to reduce that as much as possible, but there's a problem in that their game design philosophy has never had to deal with giant ships crashing on top of Jumptown, for instance. So that whole part of the game isn't really thought up in terms of how does the game itself function with this persistence. So 318, and it wasn't Siege, it was an Orison platform mission. Oh, nice. The platform missions. Yeah, that'd be cool. That's cool to know. Citizen Kate stuff with her combined arms videos, being Arma vets, helps, are very well done. Yeah, I know. She's been on Captain's Table before. But yeah, I mean, I've seen videos of players carefully walking into a bunker mission and then instantly being shot as they get into an open area from AI. Like, AI at 30 FPS in Star Citizen is no joke. It will end you very quickly, and they do have very good behavior. It's just that the system that they're currently using is old. All that system is going to be replaced with a new system that's being worked on for Squadron 42. So. The embassy going onto the ship turned it red, and the turrets lit it up. It was kind of funny. Had that happen before as well. The problem with Squadron 42 is that now I want the toys the Squadron 42 guys have now. Kind of. You don't want them now because how they work right now isn't going to work well in Star Citizen. Didn't they say Squadron 42 is now using Gen Engine 12 engine as well? Okay, so this is where I'm going to kind of try to understand things. This is what people need to understand. Star Citizen and Squadron 42 are the same game. I don't mean they're both on the same engine. I don't mean that they use similar assets. I mean they're the same game. They're developed from the same development branch. There's leaks at times that we've gotten because people left Squadron 42 files in the Star Citizen like PTU branches. So they're the same game. Everything that, especially for like base aspects like animations and engine and particle effects, they're all the same. What you see in Squadron 42 was in Star Citizen. The difference is that Squadron 42 is offline and single player, and Star Citizen is online multiplayer. They even use the same server architecture for Squadron as they do in Star Citizen. It's just a local server running on your PC versus one of their servers. They use the PES system. PES is used in Squadron 42 as the save system. So they're using, I believe, the persistent streaming. I can't remember the name. It's not persistent streaming. It's I always screw it up because I call it the stream, and I said this earlier and I forgot the name already. Something flow or something like that. But they're using that system, not iCache. iCache is gone. They're using that system as the save games feature for Squadron. Not entity graph. It's the thing that allows you to access the same point on any shard, no matter what. It's the thing that allows for persistence to function, because it's saved off on a separate service, not server meshing, not DataForge. Not the entity graph. Well, the entity graph is part of it, but replication layer. Replication layer, that's what I'm talking about. Are they using the entity graph for save games? But they're using the same architecture, same technology. So so when I say Squadron 42 and Star Citizen are the same game, they are the same game. So when people go, oh, well, I can't wait for Squadron 42 to come out so then people can actually focus on Star Citizen. It's like everything in the Squadron 42 is going to be accessible in Star Citizen. It's just a matter of translating it over to Star Citizen. But a lot of that stuff isn't finished yet. Like, for instance, the new quantum stuff, the new quantum travel stuff, it's not done yet. It is getting close to being done as of this report, which means that they're in the final stages. They're going to the UI stuff and kind of polishing up the effects and stuff like that. So that may be another 3 months, it may be a month, maybe even right now, but we don't know. Right now, we don't know until the next update. But we do know that they're continuing to work on it. But once that's done and complete state in Squadron 42, it's not like it's going to take another 6 years before that thing comes in Star Citizen. It's going to be ported to Star Citizen, and then it just has to be kind of tweaked a little bit to work with the systems that are in Star Citizen that are unique to Star Citizen and not Squadron 42. It's just a port, and it won't take nearly as long to do that. And this has happened before. Spacescaping was originally developed for Squadron 42, was ported over to Star Citizen pretty easily. Not all the ships are in Squadron, though. No, exactly. There's only a handful of ships in Squadron in comparison. And there's many ships in Squadron which you probably won't ever enter, like the Bengal. So, at least not in the first version. Yeah, the Coil was the one that did a lot of that spacescaping. A lot of the fog and smoke and clouds and such. Will some ship behind the curtain in Squadron 42 be released in the PU once Squadron 42 is live? Yeah, the Lightning. The F8 Lightning. It's in Star Citizen too. It only comes out during like Invictus events and such, but it's in Star Citizen. But there's going to be an F8C, which you can access if you complete Squadron 42. You won't get it in Star Citizen, but you have the ability to purchase it in Star Citizen once you get that. Other than the Lightning, not really. I mean, there's a bunch of Vanduul, like the current Vanduul ships in Squadron are the same ships, but different models than what we'll have than we have in Star Citizen, but those will be ported over as well. Paul, prediction on when Vulcan comes in, exact date and everything for funsies. For everything, like Vulcan 100% in, I couldn't tell you. I could tell you when the first iteration of Vulcan will come in. If for shits and giggles, I'll make a complete guess, and someone's going to hold me to it, because every time I make a guess, people treat me as if I'm Star Citizen, if I'm CIG. But I will say July 28th of this year is when Vulcan will be, the first iterations of Vulcan will be added to the game. Feel free to clip it and save it. If I'm right, I will continue to be Lorstradamus. And if I'm wrong, then you just misunderstood it. I misread the signs. Well, it's 142 endgame ships get to go into Star Citizen. I can't remember the name of the ships. The F-8 Lightning, the F-7A Hornet, Mark II Hornet. There's also the T-8A Gladiator, the Retaliator Bomber. Let's see what else of ships are there. The Saber is in there as well. Obviously the Gladius. There's lots of those ships in there. The MPVU, baby. VR by Christmas? No, we're not going to have VR by Christmas. We won't have VR until they can have assets added over there. It may have to be a full implementation of Vulcan before that can happen there. Will you play Stalker 2 in live, Paul? Is Stalker 2 an online game? Heads I win, tails you lose. Yes, that's exactly how that works. Gladius is the starting fighter. Now, at one point, the Avenger was the starting fighter, but he was a training Avenger. With recent references that said the MPVU is used as a training, as a ship trainer, I think the MPVU is going to be the first ship you fly. It'll just be interesting. Yeah, I know Stalker is coming, but you said it's on live, like as if it was an online game. Nope, single. I might play it. I'm not much of a Stalker aficionado. I'm not super into Stalker. I like survival games, but you know, I know what's going to happen is I'll play Stalker to like 4 people watching me. Let me do it this way. If I can play Stalker with other players, other creators who I know who do Star Citizen content and that kind of stuff, I'll play it, but probably. I'm definitely interested in Armored Core. Oh, almost certainly the MPV will be used like the shuttle used in Star Trek Motion Picture. But I wouldn't be surprised because as far as I can tell, the character you play in Squadron 42 starts off not being a pilot, but trying to be a pilot. So if you've played Titanfall 2 and you remember that the very beginning of that game, you play as a rifleman who wants to become a pilot, who wants to become a mech pilot, effectively, the mech drivers, the elite corps. And you're being trained by a pilot to do that. And that's the tutorial mission, is that kind of training simulation. I think we'll see something like that in Squadron, where the first time you get controls of a ship is when someone says, get into the MPVU, kid. You fly it, you know? But I do think there will be a training section where you're trained to fly like fighters. Maybe you meant on stream. Yeah, I'll probably do it on stream, but I'll almost certainly have to do it. Because it's single player, it's not multiplayer. We'll see. DataForge is a game database which allows you to quickly create data that can be initiated without parsing within the game. I would trust C Daddy CIG, who works us for CIG. From what I can remember, MPVU is what civs train on as well. Yes, it's the most common ship to train, to learn to fly on is the MPUV. Because it's super cheap and it's fucking everywhere, so. Within lore, are there any brands that refuse to make any fighting ships? Not the refuse, but Argo doesn't make any fighting ships. It's just not in their wheelhouse. They make infrastructure ships. Ships that are designed to support infrastructure. Ace tosses you Kisu's lightning. Bring the car around and don't scratch the paint. Player must then fend off Vanduul raid single-handedly before delivering the lightning. I don't think it's going to be that cliche, but yeah, something like that. Within the circle of my preferred entertainers, you are the second interested in mech games. The first was Zenitreya. I love mech games. Mech games are my favorite genre of games. My actual favorite genre of games is strategy games, but I'm bad at them. I'm terrible at them. But I love mechs as a concept. Giant mechanical robots fighting to death is just cool. Especially if you put them in more realistic universes, then it really kind of shines in my mind. Hold up, I heard Zentreya. Yeah, that's what Fishy said. Is that was their first was Zentreya. I don't know who Zentreya is. Are they a VTuber? Big VTuber? Okay. Mechs and starcitizen when CIG. Well, fun story. Sean Tracy, who's one of the bigwigs at CIG now, got his start by making MechWarrior Living Legends, which was a mod for the original Crisis that him and his brother built. And that's what got him into work for Crytek and then eventually to Star Citizen. So he's a huge mech fan. Massive mech fan. But he's also said that Chris Roberts doesn't like mechs, so we won't see them in Star Citizen, which I'm like, God damn it, Chris. Give me big stumpy robots. In lore, is there a UE organization that specializes in exploration? Yes, it's called the ICC Stellar Surveyors. The ICC Stellar Surveyors is the Imperial Cartography something. Conglomerate or something like that?
Distress bacon.
Have I tried BattleTech? I love BattleTech. I actually kickstarted BattleTech. I actually have the Kickstarter. I got the Kickstarter for BattleTech. So that's how much I like mech games. Friendship with SC ended. There is going to be a sort of mecha, but it's much more like an Appleseed mecha or like Ghost in the Shell. It's much more powered armor. It's more similar to like power armor in like Fallout than it is a mecha. But it's like 10 feet tall. It's called the Titan, which, as far as we know, is in Squadron 42, and it is a dedicated vehicle for Squadron 42. We also know it's used by the UE Marines. And it's kind of like the way that CIG described it is, if you've played PlanetSide, it's a max suit. More like heavy gear elementals, yeah. Yeah, Titan suits. There is no co-op for Squadron. It was planned originally, but then they dropped it because they wanted to, because it didn't work with the story. They did say that they wanted to do a after release patch to patch in cooperative mode for Squadron, but that was years ago. We haven't heard anything about it since then. Where's your 30k protection to PTU? So that is directly linked to the thing they want to decouple from the shards. That's the thing that actually allows you to save yourself from that, from the 30k, where like when you come back in after 30k happens, you come right back into where you last left. Do you know if they've worked on the Titan suits yet? We know that they've done extensive concept artwork for them. And I know, I'll put it this way. I know the role they play in Squadron 42. Because for those who don't know, I'm a dumbass and I spoiled myself on the entirety of Squadron 42 multiple times by now. So I know the whole story. I know the twists and turns. I know all of the, not all of the details. I know the big sweeping arcs of what's going on. So I'm not going to tell you. Imperial Cartography Cooperatives, as they're called. I think they're a government-based organization, but we really haven't seen many government-based entities that deal in exploration since the end of Project Farstar, which was the first government-funded initiative for exploration. Battletech Becker, news reason I like you. Would love to see you tackle some of the history too. I actually did that at one point, but I'm the kind of guy who's like, Black Pants Legion does it. They're fine. Let them do it. You know, like I'm still toying with the idea of doing 40k stuff, but it's like there's like 17 people who do 40k lore. There's no point in me doing 40k lore. I don't know anybody who's doing Starfield lore, which is why I started doing Starfield lore, but. Imperial Cartography Center. Let me look it up. I'll look it up. Yeah, Imperial Cartography Center is what they're called. I've looked. They're only in a Jump Point article. Oof. Titan suits and physical lockers inventory will make this my forever game. It's gonna be a bit, but yeah. You underestimate my power? No, no, no. Battletech lore is like 40k lore. Only 40k obfuscates a lot of its lore. Whereas, like, Battletech, because it's so old and has been passed with so many different companies, it's kind of all over the place and a mess. And never really had the success of 40k, so it doesn't have that kind of cohesive drive from a single entity that tries to keep it alive. I mean, it's died multiple times. The Battletech tabletop has died multiple times. It only recently got brought back by some of the original designers, but fucking goddamn Gold, whatever the fuck the name is. I can't remember the name. The assholes who owned the copyright or the trademark on Mecha, effectively. Harmony Gold, yeah. Fuck those guys. They sued everyone who tried to do any kind of mecha stuff. It was like, we own the right in America to the word mecha. Fuck you. Yeah, they finally lost the court battle, but that took like 20 years to get to them to lose. Even with other people covering lore, some people, like myself, would watch you cover other lore because you do it well. I know that. It's just, partially, it's, if you specialize, it's a lot easier to kind of focus on that. And if you diversify, it becomes more difficult because you're kind of spreading that out too wide. I'll definitely do some stuff for MechWarrior when MechWarrior 6 comes out. Question, when do you think CIG will restrict armor and pilot seats? Closer to the death of a spaceman stuff. Someone else asked me something about MechWarrior 5 DLC. Paul, are you interested in the MechWarrior 5 DLC that came out yesterday? Rise of Rasselhog, new story campaign, another mech, and interaction with other mercenary units, and base game gets free QOL updates, including better AI for your lance mates. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely down to do MechWarrior 5 as a co-op campaign, because that co-op campaign is pretty cool, but I definitely need to do it with people who I know, who I'm friends with, so. Since Squad 42 happened before the PU, we know what happens in Squad 42, or at least you do. We will when Squad 42 comes out. When Squad 42 comes out, it will impact the verse. We'll know more details about it. But it's not like world changing. Remember, you're not Commander Shepard. You're not the Dovahkiin. You are just a pilot fighting in a war that is much bigger than you. You're a part of a giant war. You're a soldier. You're a cog in a machine. But you're not like Marcus Phoenix. You're not the Master Chief. You are just a dude. You're just a dude in a flight suit fighting. That's it. So, like, you're impressive for what you do. You're still a hero, but you're not the hero. If that makes sense. All right, I'll be right back, and I'll tell you about ETA and Squad 42 and stuff like that. Whew, sorry about that. Very quick. Thank Jeebus, Chris, I'm a nobody. You are background character 1337. Exactly, yeah. Is there any ETA on Squadron 42? No. So CIG... So here's the important thing that I think a lot of people forget. CIG has not given an official ETA on Squadron 42 since the last attempt in 2016. Anything you've heard is rumor. For instance, recently, someone said that Aaron Roberts said that the game was 2 years away. That was not an official announcement of the game was 2 years away. That was Aaron Roberts talking at a Bar Citizen to somebody. And it's a rumor. There was no confirmation. There was no video of Aaron Roberts saying that. It was just passed down through word of mouth. That person could be lying. They could have misunderstood stuff. It could be true. We don't know. But people took that as gospel and got fucking angry about it, which is stupid. CIG has not made an official announcement about Squad 42 since 2016. The only thing we've heard is Chris saying it's done when it's done. That's all we've heard. As far as when it's coming out, my guess is 2025. But we'll know more this year because there's been a lot of people who follow this game closely, including myself, have noticed that CIG has been awfully early in preparation for CitizenCon, which is their yearly kind of convention. They usually only plan like maybe 6 months ahead of time when they come out with something, but they announced CitizenCon at the end of last year, which is very early. They usually never make that announcement until like March, maybe April. And then in like May, they actually give the actual date. But they announced the location and the general, like, October-ish is what they said. The month, October of this year. In, like, December of last year. And it was Sandy, Roberts, who's one of the board members, and Chris's wife, who made the announcement. So, like, we know it's in LA, we know it's in October. There seems to be an indication, at least an implication, that we'll probably see a final announcement of Squadron 42, at least a date range announcement. They said LA. I think that meant Louisiana. And it's an IRL CitizenCon, which is much more hype. Yes, and they haven't had an IRL CitizenCon for 3 years, so. And every time I say say it, everyone goes, "Of course, it's always 2 years away." It's like everything is always 2 years away until it's not. That's just how the development system they use works. But I say 2025 mostly because, in my mind, a lot of people were like, "Oh, well, Squadron 42 is coming out next year." No, it's not. And they said, "Oh, well, it'll come out in 2024." I'm like, "No, it's not." Minimum 1 year from announcement of the date. We have not heard any kind of announcement of a date, so we won't know until they have that announcement. And so the earliest date they could announce Squadron 42 is Invictus is this year. If that was the case, it would come out in 2024, around Invictus time, probably more like the end of the year. More than likely, they will announce it this CitizenCon for 2024. And I think that with the way that games are developed these days, that when the current status of Squadron 42, that we're going to see it slip into 2025, either summer or fall of 2025, for just, we need to get through the beta process, we need to polish it up, get it a little bit better, because they need to release it not fucked. Like, they can't release Squadron 42 in the state that like 318 is right now, or even when 318 goes live, because that would be a fucking disaster. So it has to be as smooth as humanly possible of an experience for the average player. So that means things like Vulkan integration needs to happen, optimizations need to happen, lots of testing needs to happen. So minimum 2 to 3 years away. I hate it when you talk reason. Oh, yeah. 40 hours of gameplay requires a lot of gameplay testing. And I don't mean like bug testing. I mean just, is this game fucking fun? Now, luckily, they've been doing a lot of that. But they've also been completely recreating the entire missions from scratch multiple times, as we've been reading in these monthly reports. So, yeah, it has to make sense with game balance, with story flow, with difficulty scaling. Now, trust me, I am very interested in Squadron 42 releasing, because I'm going to give you a secret. Come here, chat. Get closer. Close. Get close. I'm going to whisper in your ear. When Squadron 42 comes out, people will give a shit about the lore. Because Squadron 42 is all lore. It's a story game. People love lore. They'll want to know about all the characters and the events. And that's my shit. That's what I do. But until then, nobody gives a shit. So yeah, Squad 42 is very fucking important to me. Have a good night, chat. I'm not going to bed, but I just wanted to whisper. Captain No Pants, I don't know if you're joking or serious. If you're joking, good on you. If you're serious, my dude. Threatening ASMR. we have to have some sort of update. It's been so long since CIG's done any kind of major update to the public. And I think it's stupid because one of the things that CIG seems to not understand is that once a year, big visual teaser, something like that, an update to just a new version of the same vertical slice we had with the new technology would be huge. People would shut the fuck up for the rest of the year if they saw that, because they could see this is what we're working on, this is what we're planning on, and people would stop asking questions. And anytime someone would say, well, what about Squadron 42? People would point to that and say, just watch the fucking trailer. Like, this is gameplay that they're working on. We get it. It's much improved from the previous one. We see more interactions. And do the little commentary thing that they did with Chris and Sean and other people talking about it and that kind of stuff. People would shut up, but they just don't seem to want to do that for some reason. There are some people who would pay for threatening ASMR. Oh, Jade. I want to know about the background of Cal. Oh my God. Cal Mason. I have a massive crush on Cal Mason. His actor is hot as shit too, so it doesn't help. But Cal Mason is the best character in Squadron 42. Period. Hands down. He's got his own Pulp Fiction series written about him. All right, inverse Pulp Fiction series exists, like cartoons that exist of him. The man is a legend. I can tell you Gillian Anderson's character is the daughter of Admiral Bishop. Have a good night, BGD. Of Cal Mason. Cal Mason. C-A-L. I'm saving that stuff for Squadron. When we get the announcement of Squadron and we start getting regular updates about what's going on, I will start doing character profiles of all of the people we know about Squadron 42. Noah White, Rachel McLaren. I think her name is Rachel McLaren. The Gillian Anderson's character, Admiral Bishop, Cal Mason. We actually know the character's name that Henry Cavill plays. He's the lead. He's the squadron lead of Squadron 42. So. Talk about the Battle of Vega. Remember, I'm the guy that posted the pic of us using my CIG gold card as an ice scraper. How many members of CIG do Squadron 42 know about? Current or past? That's the question. We know of 2. Okay. Ryan Enright. So Ryan Enright is the leader of Squadron 42 currently. That is the character that Cavill plays, and Cal Mason is number 2, played by Jack Houston. Yeah, Henry Cavill's in Squadron 42. He plays the leader of Squadron 42. There's also the character that is played by Sandy herself. Though she may not be in Squadron, she may be just a separate one. He's EXO. Yeah, his EXO. No, Deep Light Gaming asks, wait, Scratch Henry Cavill's in Squad 42 too? Yes. There's a lot of people. I'll also tell you that one of the doctors is in Squadron 42. One of the recent doctors from Doctor Who is in Squadron 42. Also, a lot of people from Boardwalk Empire and Game of Thrones. The original Game of Thrones, not the new one. Yes. And it's not Matt Smith. Sadly, it's not Matt Smith. That would be cool as fuck. No, it's not Matt Smith. Liam Cunningham, but also the woman who played the sister of the Iron Islands, that dude, she's also in it. I can tell you who it is if you want. Not Tom Baker. He does want to go, I guess. I don't know. Not John Hurt. It's Capaldi. It's Capaldi. Peter Capaldi is in Squadron 42. There's a lot of people in Squadron 42. So I don't know if Capaldi is like he's in some scenes, but I don't think he's in a starring role necessarily. There's a lot of that, and of course you've got the John Rice Davies is in it. You've got Mark Hamill. You've got Mark Strong is in it. I forgot the name of it. The dude who was like, we're this close to greatness. Is that Mark Strong? That's not Mark Strong. That's he's in it. 12th Doctor is in Squad 42. He plays a really cool character, actually. He's a character who's a consistent character in Star Citizen. I've actually mentioned him a couple of times. Like I refer, the lore posts are made from his perspective all the time. Gary Oldman, yeah. Effectively, because Chris Roberts and what's his name? The other co-founder of CIG, who everyone forgets, who's an entertainment lawyer. Because they both were in the entertainment industry for a very long time, and television and movies, they had access to casting directors, which normal video games would not. So they were able to access actors who most video games would very rarely be able to get access to. A lot of B-string kind of background characters, actors who you recognize from other movies and video games. And a lot of the people who are in Squadron 42 were actually in a Chris Roberts production in the past, because Chris was a producer for many, many things, including, I believe, Cal Mason, the guy who plays Cal Mason, Jack Houston, was in Outlander. So, I mean, I wish we have having Nicolas Cage in Squadron 42. I would lose my fucking mind. I wish we had Nicolas Cage. You know how many people would buy Squadron 42 just because it's a Nick Cage is in it? He's done a couple of sci-fi, yeah. Nick Cage will do anything for a paycheck. Have you not seen Mandy or The Color from Outer Space? Yeah. Nick Cage owes a lot of taxes, which is why he does he's kind of like Bruce Willis in that like he's just kind of doing everything he can to make as much money as possible to pay back, but he's also having fun with it. He also does some pretty good ones. He's in Pig, which is he actually plays a pretty good. It's a pretty good role for him there. Some more dramatic stuff. Nick Cage is Banu. Oh, if Banu were all Nick Cages. Color of Space is a little weirder, but Mandy's an excellent film. Absolutely, it's visually stunning and crazy. Nick Cage is the voice of Pico. I could see him playing a pirate. Nick Cage would play a good smuggler or pirate. I don't think Bruce Willis or Stallone would do it, but I definitely think Nick would be a little bit more difficult for them to get. Mr. Cage would be. Peter Capaldi is playing a human. I'll say that. Yeah. Bruce Willis is slowly degrading. Like he's got a either cancer or some sort of mental conditions where he just can't focus as much. So he's did as many movies as possible so he can make as much money as possible so that he can stop. But that's financial reasons. Oh my God. Nick Cage being a doctor. Easy, buddy. I want to take his face off. No, but the cast list of Squadron 42 is insane. Rona Mitra, who plays the XO of the Stanton. Even like the supporting characters are pretty good, like known background characters. Michael Ironsides would be a good choice, but I don't think he's a little old. Yeah, Eric Kite Davis is Chief People Officer. I don't feel bad. There was a post made by CIG about what's your most exciting feature of 318, and I didn't realize it was an Eric Kite Davis had done a retweet of it. I just said release, and I didn't mean that to be like super salty. It's just more like I'm done talking about that shit. Just get that out. Need it out, CIG. I think that's kind of I feel like I mimicked, I channeled most of the community's effort in there. It's just, we need it out. Done talking about it. Just like Pyro. I'm done fucking talking about Pyro. Let the damn thing release. Is Anna playing Miss Babbage in Squadron 42? I do not believe that New Babbage is in Squadron 42. But yeah. Chief People Officer is not a new term either. It's pretty old now. It's replaced HR. Let me pull up the IMDb. Okay. So the cast. Let me go down the list. Obviously, Gary Oldman, Ernst Bishop, Commander Mark Hamill, Lieutenant Commander Steve Oldman Colton, Mark Strom, Captain Thomas Wade, Poe Kara, Webb Webster, Sophie Wu plays Kara Webster. John Rhys Davies plays Randall Graves. Liam Cunningham, Captain Noah White. Jack Houston as Cal Mason. Ben Mendelsohn as Julian Wexler. Rona Mitra as Executive Officer Kelly. Gillian Anderson, Captain McLaren. Sandy Roberts, Naira Pusher Fell. Andy Serkis plays one of the Van Duels. Ian Duncan plays the character, the male character. Stephen Bissard plays Eugene Morrow. Archie Reese plays Beer. Daniel Ings plays Graham Uri. Craig Fairbanks plays Fat Tagisia. He's one of the UMC guys. Paulie Classis, I can't remember this. So there's a bunch of people like that. What's Cavill's role? He plays Squadron 42 lead. What is it? Squadron 42 lead Ryan Enright. Hey, Deadringer. Yeah, Ben Mendelsohn too. It's a fucking cast, man. It's a fucking cast. This was Cavill just after he played Superman. That's when he got in. Because this is like 2013, 2014 was when he did that. He probably even forgot he's in Squadron 42. Andy Serkis plays the Van Duel lead, the Van Duel officer, like the head Van Duel like warlord. Like I said, they're not fucking around with this cast. This ain't no game, son. I mean, it is a game. It's just an experience game. And because my dumbass spoiled myself tremendously for most of the game, I know the whole story and plot lines. I do my best not to say anything because I know so many people are not wanting to get spoilers. But all I can tell you is based off of what I know and what I've heard, the game will beat you to a pulp. It is obviously inspired by Dark Souls. Like, this game will make you feel like you've gone 10 rounds in a heavyweight championship and then the bad guys show up kind of thing. It is going to be a hell of an experience on top of deep cinematics, lots of character development, and like the acting is fucking good. It is very good, like spot on good. And the writing is, I would say, up there of an average Marvel movie. There's lots of quips, there's lots of humor, but there's enough time for more serious aspects. But the military engage in how military would engage. Banter, gallows humor, that kind of thing. So like Wing Commander, yeah, I mean, obviously. Now, I don't think you're not going to be dodge rolling in a Gladius, but in terms of like, you know how Dark Souls rewards you for learning its systems and encourages you to experiment with how you play, that's how Squadron 42 is designed. And the crutch of this, which is really cool, is how they've written the game. Is how the lore is written, because one of the main features of Squadron 42nd Squadron, the actual squadron in the game, is that they do not work like normal squadrons. A normal squadron, you would have a plan of attack. The commander would have, you practice year on year. You work together to work with your wingmen. You do all sorts of maneuvers and stuff like that together. The 42nd Squadron is an independent squad in the sense that you are given huge leeway Effectively, your commander says, accomplish this goal with this assets. Good luck. And it's up to you to determine how you get to that point. And that's how the game plays. You have, say, a mission. Like, say, we know the mission that there's going to be a mission at the Gamma Ray, the Asiato Gamma Ray. That is here is your objective. Do it however you see fit. Complete the mission. If you saw the vertical slice, when you go see, when you go down to the planet to help Trejo, advocacy agent Trejo, you have to you get the options of how you rescue her, stealth, going loud, various options like that. And even Coulson says, "Hey, it's your op. You make the decision." So that not forces but encourages replayability. You could go Metal Gear Solid completely stealth, go into a mission to complete it. You go and shooting everyone. You can do some sort of in between. Different ways to approach target, different ways you can approach a mission aspect, different ways to go around. That's why they build the entire station is all one level. Simon, I have listened to the audio files. I have seen the stuff. I have seen this, dude. You can say I don't. That's fine. You can not believe me. I have. It could be. It could be entirely different. But based off of my experiences, that's what I see. That's what it's being designed as. And if you don't like me talking about it, you don't have to be here, Simon. That's all I'm going to say. In Star Citizen lore, how do characters eat and drink with space helmets on? Can you strictly not eat while you're in hostile space environments? Not that I know of. I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any references to feeding or drink tubes. There might be, because I know modern day astronauts have water tubes and such. So there's enough content or interest in your part to do a video labeled Squadron 42 spoilers. If I did, I think CIG would strike it. CIG is serious about that sort of thing. They will strike those sorts of videos if they get a chance to. Look at all the leaked spoiler stuff that was released. That was all hot potato whack-a-mole to death. And I personally don't want to piss off CIG. But I will say Simon is right in to say that this is all based off of my experience with it. Though I think I did I did preface this enough, is that this is the way it's designed to work, which is really cool. And also, nothing I just said was out of character with based off of what CIG has said themselves. If you are interested in more of the design philosophy of CIG with Squadron 42, I would highly suggest watching the Vertical Slice trailer. That is commentary. It's on CIG's website on YouTube, where Chris Roberts and Sean Tracy and one or two other people, I think, are doing a commentary on the Vertical Slice and talking about their own plans and how Squadron 42 is going to work. And one of the methods they've talked about was extensively in like different approach methods for every location. So no, they might do something worse and actually like hurt me legally. Yeah. We know where you live. They do. They could find it. Quadrilogy Vest would be cool, yeah. I don't think you're going to have a poop meter in Squadron. Yes. Bomber jacket. Dreams crushed. Let's see. Get on 3 hours and 30 minutes. Probably end it right here. If you have, last chance to ask any questions, y'all. If you have any more questions. Sorry. I'm really excited about Squadron 42. And of all the stuff I know, the whole reason why I have that whole soliloquy as well is because despite what I know, and despite the spoilers I have seen, heard, and read, I'm still interested in Squadron 42. The gameplay seems like it is very, very, very focused on, like, the team knows what they're doing, and they're very careful about what they're working on. Which is probably one of the reasons why they don't want to tell us, because a lot of it is really experiential. Like, it's very much if you played Wing Commander, like the Wing Commander games, similar to that, where like if you're going into the game blind, experiencing the universe for the first time, experiencing the game is a lot about social interactions. It's about playing the game. It's that kind of nice mesh between the two. Knowing what you know, will it be worth the wait? I'm going to say no. Squadron 42 is not going to be Half-Life 2. It's not going to be a game that... It's not Last of Us. It's not going to be a game that's going to change the way you look at video games. If they nail everything like that, like I've heard and seen and read, then it will be a solid entry action experience, which will give you a lot more interest into the universe and maybe a sequel. It is not a AAA bombastic release. It could be. They could be taking it longer, and because the audio files that I listened to were very old. They were from the original recordings, and they may have updated them, and they've obviously added more missions since then. It could, but as of right now, I would not say that I am like thinking this game's going to change gaming, but I am still excited for it. You know, the Redeemer is one of the most beautiful ships in the verse. Any plans in CIG to make it prettier by making variants? It's an ugly piece of shit. The Redeemer sucks. Don't at me. There's some modularity to it, yes. Thank you, Scott. I think a lot of gamers who've never heard of or played with Star Citizen will be blown away by some of the aspects. I do think it'll approach the way it's being designed and what I know about it. I do think it will bring the Wing Commander style of gameplay to a generation that really didn't experience it before. Again, the closest thing I can compare it to is Mass Effect. It's probably the closest modern example, but it's a terrible example because Mass Effect, you are Commander Shepard. You're the hero of the universe sort of thing. And you have a lot of freedom and it's open world. There's no open world in Squadron 42. There is open world in Star Citizen, but in Squadron 42, there's no real open world. You don't have a freedom. You go where you're told to go. Your missions are objective based. You go to this area and you do the objective, and you might have a side mission that you have to accomplish, but there is no, you don't control that fact. You just you go with where your ship goes and you do the missions you're supposed to do. As far as I remember, they said you just get injected into an open zone and then you do whatever missions you're being ordered to do, effectively. But that's Wing Commander. That's what Wing Commander was. But I wouldn't expect it to be Half-Life, because Half-Life was so based on your experience in the game. Chris Roberts is still a cinematics guy. He's still going to play cinematics and all sorts of things like that. So you're going to have, I wouldn't put it past Chris Roberts to put hours of cinematics that you're going to, maybe not Hideo Kojima levels of cinematics, but there's definitely going to be a lot of cinematics, especially in some of the social aspects. Question, banana on your head, what 4 white box ships do you think CIG is working on? Ursa, Ambulance, the large RSI mining ship, another salvage vessel, and another ground vehicle. Probably combat vehicle. I can guess it. I have an idea for ideas from about an Anvil ground support gunship. Sorry, check it out. Put a link up. No, they're not the X1, because they would have talked about the X1 if it was the X1. Any ship that is been released and sold will have the name of that ship attached to any updates. The updates we have right now are all white box ship, unannounced white box ships, which means that they're not the ships we think. That no ships that have been announced before. Do you think there'll be an Ursa variant with countermeasures and missiles? I don't know, maybe. Real question, do you think the Polaris is actually going to be in production in April now that we see EUVC is scheduled to work on it? Or EUVC? Maybe. I think it's a contention for releasing this year, because it seems like they're focusing on it. Then again, I also think there's a Tree pointed this out, and a couple other people did, that it feels like this year is very. Last year was Drake. This year feels very RSI. Because there's just so many large RSI ships in concept, especially the RSI Minor, which is, we know is in concept as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we got a bunch of RSI ships, like the Polaris, the RSI Minor, the Galaxy, and maybe even the Perseus. But probably not all of them. I'm playing Mass Effect 1 for the first time. Not very open world, it's pretty limited, which isn't a bad thing. It's open world in the sense that you can go to the locations you're allowed to go to. You have an option to progress how you want to progress in that kind of open world. Not in like a sandbox way, but in like in a choose your own adventure sort of way. Isn't the Odyssey the large miner? No, the Odyssey is an exploration ship. CIG does not count it as a miner because it also cannot mine anything but Quantanium. Isn't that the Orion? The Orion is a capital miner. Remember, CIG said at the end of CitizenCon this year that they were going to do a concept ship which would be a large mining vessel, something like a Starfarer, I guess, or that kind of thing. Yeah, I don't think the Orion can land either. It's like a flying mining platform. No, the Sidus is a mining drone. Yeah, maybe something the size of a Carrack or a Hammerhead or something like that, yeah. I'd love for them just to finish the Polaris as well. Yeah. But you got to remember that the Polaris, as it stands, is very... Put this. The Polaris is... What am I blinking on it? Oh, it's just a large ship. But the anything work done towards the Polaris will also be work towards other ships. Because the panels, the walkways, the doorways, the screens, all of the aspects that make up the Polaris, which aren't, unique to it, will be reused for the Galaxy, for the Perseus, for this RSI Minor, for all the other larger RSI ships. Because that's what CIG does. That's the reason why this last year we got the Mule, the Vulture, the Corsair, all these different Drake vehicles, because they were all made, they all use the similar assets for one another. CIG tends to like to do that. Like they take one big manufacturer and just try to chunk a bunch of the stuff out that they can, especially if they're similar. But I was doing a bit. No, my brain stopped working for a moment. I don't know about Perseus, but almost certainly, since we know that the Galaxy is currently in work and the Polaris has at least started its reconcept stage, they're both certainly going to get more work in. Did they scale down the Cygnus? No, it's huge. It's massive. I've seen work in progress pictures of it. That thing is massive. It still fills up entire hangars. It's like an automated mining drone. Oh, the Cygnus mine. Here we go. It's a Squadron 42 exclusive vehicle right now. It's by Grey Cat. It's their only vessel, like spaceship. So I don't know if I can find an image for this. A perspective. Right here. This is a person right here. Here at the bottom. Very bottom, you can see a little sliver. I mean, that guy right there. So as far as we know, it's semi-automated. So it can work on its own, but it can also have someone who controls it. This is the Cygnus, Grey Cat Cygnus mining tick. This is an asset for Squadron 42 that is also it's been talked about a couple of times here and there, but it's one of the big. It's like a semi-automated drone miner. Yeah, I heard that they opened up a Leon. Was it Orleans or Leon branch for Turbulent? Yeah, tick. Thing is huge. Yeah, you can see them in the vertical slices as well, at least in the background. Yeah, go for it, Boot. I'll post it up here. It's very small, but yeah. You can kind of see the size of it. Now, this is an old image. This is from like 2013, 2014 or something like that. Very small, massive space bug. No, that's from the Wingman's hangar. It's from an official. It's the Wingman's hangar was what we call ISC today. The early versions of that. Oh, you were here, Amos. You know what. But for everyone who don't know. Is there any planet on the lore similar to Klendathu, Big Bug from Starship Troopers? No, but we do have something similar to the bugs of Starship Troopers. They're called the whip crabs. They're residents of Pyro. They used to be called the pyro crabs. They're a species of crabs which are they have a queen and they're like a hive, they have in drones and stuff like that. They live in caves, so I guess the closest to we have something like that. Paul, what do you think is holding back the Microtech Yeti and the PU? Server meshing. They need to have the behaviors, which they're working on for some, it's like Squadron 42 and other places, done, which isn't that difficult. They already have the planetary nav mesh, which they can do that. The issue is populating NPCs on planets and stuff like that, so that you can have more assets per server. There's a fan one around that looks awesome. I think so. I think you're right. I think that may have not also been a fan one. That may have actually been an asset they ripped and then reanimated. AstroPub, something else I was curious about. If persistent hangers came in 2023, will these be the same style as the ones we have now, or will they have the return to the hangers that were part of our game packages? I have no idea, to be honest on that one. I would say likely the ones we have now, and then modified over time to be more like it, because I don't think we're going to have like the old hanger modules, honestly. The old hanger modules are gone. I don't think we're ever going to get them back. And I don't think we'll see something like that when the initial release happens of persistent hangers. I think it'll be more like what we have right now. Got almost right here. I got to be at 8 a.m. Yeah, I got to be up at 6. So thank you all for hanging out. Thank you for watching. I will be back tomorrow for some 318 exploration with smuggling and stuff like that. I'll be doing here on Twitch and on YouTube. If you enjoy this, please hit that follow button if you're here on Twitch. Always love to have you come back here. Hit that subscribe button if you're on YouTube. I'd love to see you come back with YouTube. Would you stream to both platforms? The Squadron 42 update that we just read will be up on YouTube starting Saturday. We'll be up on Saturday. Saturday as well, we'll be doing Captain's Table. We have Subliminal and Zero State will both be on. And yeah, Sunday, I have yet to determine what we're going to do on Sunday. Just a stream, probably. I was hoping that they might get Wave 2 a little bit more out for 318, but we'll see. Anyways, thank you all for hanging out. Like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.